Well,
All right, y'all. Welcome to All Politics are Local, America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. Well, y'all know if it is the fourth Friday, y'all know it's time for the Disciples. So we're gonna jump into that tonight. Of course, John Austin is gonna give you all a rundown. My name is Ed Riley. I'm one of your hosts. And on my screen to my left is John Austin, and to my right is our beloved brother, the one and only pastor in the hood,
grace
Pastor
and peace.
Ali. So I'm gonna
Peace.
give it to John to give the rundown, and then we're gonna give it to our brother who is in the middle of a heated conversation that obviously I want to be a part of too. So
Oh,
go ahead, John.
excellent. So that was Ed Riley. Ed Riley created the entire program, All Politics are Local. His vision over 12 years ago. Can't believe it was that long. But thank you, Ed. Tonight's rundown is going to be quite interesting and heated, right? There's probably one conversation going on in America. If anything, that could take the blanket legalization of guns off the table is the Roe v.
Yep.
Wade. So you'll be getting the disciples, probably having some heated conversations about what that means, like whether or not the federal laws to ban abortion are next, because once it's not a right, that means it's not a right. So there's going to be some heated conversation about that coming up with the disciples, where you have Reverend Louise Scott-Rountree, also Councilwoman elect Louise Scott-Rountree. Congratulations on that. We have Pastor in the Hood Bryant. We have Pastor Bryant Ali here, Pastor in the Hood, and we also have Minister Haqq Muhammad that will be on for this great discussion at 7 o'clock. We're going to have some more conversation about Supreme Court and guns. Starting off this conversation with our new guest host, Jakki Lake. She's our guest host. She's our guest co-host for tonight. Motivational speaker, someone who works on various political campaigns, a communicator, and we look forward to having her back on the show. This time as a guest host. We're gonna have at 7:30. We're gonna have Robert Gumbs on, and this is gonna be cool because this is the 60th anniversary of the Naturally Yours 62 pageant, which was the start of the Black is Beautiful movement. So that's going to be some real good cultural conversation that takes us way back to where, afros were not seen the way they should be seen, right? Like natural hair, black is beautiful. So what that was in 1962, I think there are a lot of things we take for granted now that just weren't the case back then. So that's going to be a good conversation with Robert Gumbs, one of the founders and one of the founders of that movement so long ago, right? Like at 8 p.m., more issues of the day. We're going to hear more from Jakki Lake, and then we're going to have on the state of hip hop. Now, DJ Rhino is not going to be with us tonight, but we're going to have Jessica Kinetic Renee on, along with the artist Goke, talking about the latest in hip hop, the state of hip hop, and yes, Drake will be talked about. I mean, Drake will be part of that conversation and a bunch of other stuff too. So we're gonna have a great program tonight. We hope that you are hanging out with us, and we are back with the disciples.
Well, grace and peace be unto you from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. This is the day that the Lord has made, and I choose to rejoice and be glad in it. Good evening to everyone. Good evening to everyone, to all my co-hosts, and to those that will be coming on. We greet you in the matchless name of Jesus, and we just want you to know this is a good day to be alive. I declare that this is the day that the Lord has made, and I choose to rejoice and be glad in it. I see one of my co-hosts, Council-elect Reverend Louise Scott-Rountree, is making her way on, and we was already got started with myself and Brother Ed Riley and with Jonathan Austin. We were talking about the Roe versus Wade, I would say the overturning of it. And what does that mean for community? What does that mean for society? What does that mean for the future of America, so to speak, and everything, and where people are on different parts of the spectrum. But as don't get me wrong, I believe in life. I believe in life begins at conception, but I also believe in the woman's right to choose. I believe that every woman is responsible and is the progenitor or the keeper of her body, and she has that right to choose. And I don't get into that argument. I've been on both sides of the horn. have had been, one who have had been participant of abortion of my children at different sectors of life. And so I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm not, holier than thou. But I understand both sides of the pendulum and why you do what you do and why you don't do what you do, and et cetera, et cetera. But I still believe that, I still believe in pro-life, and that's just my point. But it is a crucial time that we are in, that we realize now that rights that were once freely had are now being taken away, and especially for our female counterparts. That affects them more than anything, the right to choose, and whether you're pro-life, whether you're pro-abortion, whatever your stance is, you still have to understand that everybody has the God-given right to, we're free will agents. We have the right to make our choice. It should be a freedom of choice. And it's amazing, and it's going to be very interesting to see what the future holds now, And my colleagues are on. This is All Politics Local, and we're excited. And we have our Zakki Muhammad is on, and we also have our producer, Brother Ed Riley, is on. And I want them to chime in as soon as when they get ready. Chime in, and how do you feel? And naturally, my counterpart, Louise Scott-Rountree, Councilwoman elect Louise Scott-Rountree, is on, and she's a female, and I, love to know her feelings about what's going on. So let's get it on.
So would I. So, baby,
come
muted,
off
Rountree.
She's muted. She's muted. She's blazing away. She's
Good evening. I am so honored to be with my big brother, Pastor Ali, Pastor AKA Pastor in the Hood, best producer on this side of heaven, Brother Ed Riley, my Lord. I know Jonathan, our sergeant in arms for All Politics and Locals, the disciples, especially me. Listen, it's an honor once again to be here on All Politics and Local, the number one hip hop radio show, Zoom show, whatever you want to call it, but it is number one, and it is a blessing. Let me tell you about me. I have a son.
Let's not forget Baba. Baba's on with us tonight.
Oh, Baba, you there? Baba's on. Hey, Baba.
You ain't missing, man. You ain't
I'm not. I can only watch it. I'm on my phone in my car. I can't see nobody's face but mine right now.
That's all right. You came in red and fiery. We couldn't hear you. So wait a minute.
That's why I wanted to
do.
Well, listen. Let me tell you something. Y'all do know I'm a woman, right? Well, you couldn't if you had to swear by it.
You told us you are.
Yeah. Now, let me tell you this. I have a son. You know that, Ali. You look just like me, right? Okay. I had him by choice because I chose to carry him and have him and give birth to him by choice. There's so many different in Pastor Ali, because we're both, and I know, look, Riley got some scripture in his stomach too. I just have a problem with man turning laws around. I don't know how it became an issue under government in the first place. But since it did, and now here we are again with Roe versus Wade being overturned. If I were to be raped and be impregnated, I'd want to have a choice. I saw a movie on Lifetime where a woman was molested and she chose to have the child. And the father then fought for the rights. He didn't get them, of course. And he harassed her in the interim because he couldn't get rights. But I'd have a real problem if I was impregnated and I was told by man or the government. Good evening, First Lady of this generation with your beautiful self, Miss Belina Ali, with the best making cupcake woman that I know anyhow. I'd have a big problem with that. And I would think anybody would have a problem with that. No, I am not for a man making a decision about my body. No, I'm not. And I don't know how you men feel about it because you're men. You're men. You've never carried a child. You know, I have a problem with government telling me, I'm sorry, even though you were raped, you must carry that child. And that doesn't mean that the choice would not be to carry or not to carry. The point is, it's my choice. It's my body. Whatever penalties we have to pay for doing what things that those say are not pleasing to God, we independently have to deal with God and the repercussions. I always tell people you can pick your sin, but you can't pick your consequences. So the truth of the matter is, for those pro-lifers that are out there telling us that we should and what we can and cannot do with my body, our bodies, yes, I'm against it. I'm totally against you telling me, Pastor Ali, that I have to listen to what you say about what I do with my body. Mine, all this is mine. My eyes, what I eat, don't make you go to the bathroom. When I walk, if my toe hurt, you don't feel the pain. I have I don't know where society years ago came up with this. And I know a lot of it is based on, it's from a religious perspective, Pastor Ali and Brother John. I know it is. I know it is. I know what foundation they're basing it on. And I can't tell you how spiritual nobody else is, because I know what my faith is. I know what my foundation is. And if I'm wrong, I got to deal with God, gonna deal with me. But God gave us all free will.
Free will.
That means we have a right. If we choose wrong, we got to deal with God. If we choose right, but it's our independent will as to what we're going to do. Free will. God said, do anything you want. Try if you want. Just don't mess with their will. I am not in agreement with nobody having a choice. That's why I can't go to jail. Because see, when you go to jail, they tell you when to go to the bathroom, when to eat, TV go off when they get ready to. You can't get up and go to the store. You put yourselves in these situations, and then you have to deal with the repercussions. But my body, if I put myself in that situation to be incarcerated, that's one thing. But at the end of the day, this is all I'm responsible for. I'm responsible for eating right. I'm responsible. Nobody says, the government says if you weigh 500 pounds that you know you might die. So we got to step in to make sure you lose weight because it's against the law. That you might have a heart attack or a stroke because you're overweight. The doctor don't record that you're 700 pounds and you might die. And that the government has to step in and say that you can't eat no more chicken and fried rice.
What you say,
yeah.
girl?
I'm just trying to say. Now that's
I agree. I think the challenge is, as I stated earlier, as one who has been in relationships where we have been to the abortion clinic and the effect of that, the long-term effect, and it was a choice that we made. It wasn't just a choice of the female. It was a choice of the female and I that we made. But I always allowed the choice to be hers, in that aspect, because each situation is different. And I think now people will say, well, we have kids that are not wanted and stuff like that. We have a lot of different things. We have adoption, we have foster parents, we have kids and diapers, we have all these different things. These are the ills of life. But I'm with you. I believe that everybody, especially a female, has the right to have the choice, pro-choice over her body, what she wants to do with it. And I think for government to step in, especially for something that's been on the books for over 50 years or close to 50 years, for you to turn that thing over now. And what you're doing now is dividing the country even deeper, because some states you can do it. They're pro-choice. And some states are going to turn around and totally make it illegal, totally wipe it out, access for women. So what's going to happen is you're going to have these illegal mills opening back up. You're going to have women traveling, and you're going to have many women putting their lives at risk doing in-house, in the apartment, in the rooming house, in the trailer, abortions, which will put their own life at risk. And I think it is a challenge here in 2022 that with all the issues we have going on, that we would even bring that to the table.
My Lord.
Palatine is that. Bring that to the table to make it, to have another issue that's so broadly thought of. And most of the people that are celebrating, I believe that everybody, we're free will agents in God. I believe that. I believe the Creator created everybody to make your own choice. I'm going to dance. If you dance to the music, you pay to the piper. Ask your mama.
Absolutely.
It is what it is. The scriptures say, God is not marked. Whatsoever man or woman sow, that's what we should also reap.
And Ali, wait a minute. And it don't mean we not pro-life. We're not out here saying this. I mean, when you start saying, somebody put on the mayor's live today, and I know her, she's a sister, she has a lot of children. Reverend Louise, you pro-life. First of all, I don't answer questions on a platform that's discussing something else, because that's how conversations get all misconstrued. So someone asked, was I pro-life? But they were talking about economic development, so I never responded. And I love her in case she's watching it. I love her. Sister, you got my number. If you can catch me and I answer the phone, you better believe I'm going to say it. But this is truly the platform for me to say, I don't believe nobody. I don't know. Ali, we're not saying that we are not pro-life. Of course we want life. The Lord says, go out and multiply, be fruitful. So of course. But then we have to be mindful of how we're being fruitful. I got a bunch of pro-life mothers that have 5 children, can't feed 5 of them, looking for somewhere to live, because these things happen in life. Life has happened to them. So they did the right thing. They were pro-life.
Right.
They were pro-life. We got because they made the choice to have the children. And so we have to help. Society has to do what we can to help take care of those babies if mothers can't, or fathers can't, because there's some single fathers too. The children were born. You have mothers that have died in childbirth, being pro-life. So nobody's against pro-life. What I'm against is you telling me about my life and what I should do and can and cannot do with my body. If I need a heart, go ahead.
You got a choice. You got a choice.
Especially
with rape.
If I need a heart,
rape,
you're not going to tell me, well, you know what? You was born with a heart. So since that heart don't work no more, you just have to die. Don't worry about going to get no heart. Sure, we're pro-life. We have livers transplant and lung transplant and heart transplant. We're for all of that. All of that. But when it comes to our female reproductive systems and what we produce, we should have a choice as to whether we want to or whether we don't. Now, listen, when they start talking about babies being 8 months and 7 months, unless they just naturally lose a child, I don't know. I've never met anyone, Pastor Ali, that was 8 months pregnant and decided they were going to have an abortion. I've never met anyone. Now, I've had some women that were 8 months pregnant and the baby was stillborn. Imagine that.
And then many have had the option of giving up for adoption.
I've had women that told me that they were told by the young lady that does my hair. She was told by her doctor that she should not have the child because the child probably would be dead. Well, when you put it in God's hands, you say, okay, I'm going to have this baby anyway, because the doctor said it might not be healthy. The doctor said it might have Down syndrome. And her baby died like a month or 2 later. if she lived to be a month. She chose to have the baby. Doctor told her. So having a choice, sometimes it don't even work out in your favor. But the
Well,
truth
I
of the
believe
matter
that's
is
what
it's
life
your
is
choice.
about. All of us have a choice. I believe life is freedom of choice. You have a choice. I believe that as a believer. I have a choice to
And they
believe
tell you
in
go
the.
to in New Jersey yet, Pastor Ali. But we got to
Yeah,
be
I got a
proactive
choice.
to make sure that they don't come
Yeah,
here with this foolishness, because
I have
they,
a choice to
it's
worship. You know, I believe. I
that,
believe everybody has a choice to make their own decision. I don't believe even as a pastor, I can't make the decision for a woman.
and
Number
I'm
one, I
not going
never
to
been
tell
a
you
woman.
what you should not do.
I,
I
I
I
have
don't
never
tell
been a woman.
I have a
you don't
question.
do that.
I have a
Yes,
question
sir.
for I have a question for both Reverend Roundtree and for Pastor Ali. Um, the Roe v. Wade, the push to get the Supreme Court filled with people who would overturn Roe v. Wade happened based on the religious right and
That's what I
religious
said.
who are like, we believe in God, and because we believe in God, it is a moral issue that we must push this. What is the difference? And even when you're dealing with like issues of gender, like majority of white women voted for Trump. The majority of white women in these red states are supporting abortion. So, and because of because they say they're religious and it's a theological issue, right? What is the difference between your theology and the theology that is we want that we are pro-life. We believe that all life is sacred, and anytime you get rid of a life, that it is murder, right? Abortion equals murder according to their theology, and they think that the law should never justify murder. What is the difference between that theology and your theology?
Well, the difference between that
Oh,
theology, my theology, is this. Same thing with capital punishment, eye for eye.
that's right.
Capital. I believe that a woman and a man. I believe that we are free will agents. I believe that we have the freedom of choice, and I believe that outranks whatever somebody may say. Because see, the people that say they believe is not every believer. I'm not saying that I believe in killing babies. I'm not saying that. But I believe that a woman has the right. And I believe that there's a reason. If my daughter, my group of daughters, if my daughter is raped, my daughter has that right, whether she wants
That's
to have
right.
that baby. I believe in that. If my wife went out this tomorrow morning and got raped and got pregnant, I believe that her and I have a right to make a decision what we're gonna
Right.
do about this child
Right.
that she is.
That's right.
You know, I believe that there's circumstances that the person ought to have a right. I don't believe anybody that gets pregnant and runs to the abortion. Not with people I have
That's
dealt with.
right.
It's been a thought process. It's been an agonizing period. They go back and forth, and the reason is for different reasons. And when they go down, and it's not something even after abortion that they get over it. It's something that they carry for life. And so
That's
for
right.
me, I believe that the woman has the right to make that choice because it's her body, regardless of my religious affiliation or my religious beliefs, of me being a male or what I believe.
Right.
I think for me, I think the biggest part is that we've got to understand that this was a group of white men, right? White men who sitting on the Supreme Court that are making this decision. And the thing is I think that what was known is that this was always going to happen like this, right? I think that was one of the reasons why I think Donald Trump had put the people that he put on the Supreme Court because he knew that when this vote came up, and he knew that these votes would come up. I think that he knew that these kind of decisions would be made. And so I think that at the end of the day, for black folk, I think that, most black folk who deal with black women, I think we all know that, our sisters, clearly make the decisions with their bodies. I've never dated a black woman who I could tell what to do with her body. I don't care what my decisions or what my thoughts were, but I think that we need to understand that, and I think that in this country. I think that, from a political perspective, I think that, it's about those cats having political power and believing that they can use that power to make those kind of decisions. And that's what they're doing. And Rountree was correct when Rountree says that, in the state of New Jersey, because of Governor Murphy, that women here in New Jersey not affected by that, but that is not the case in some other states that are controlled by Republicans. So I think that, I think from that perspective, I think that, we've got to become politically aware, but we also have to understand that, from a real perspective, I mean, we've got to understand that, if these folks can turn back Roe v. Wade, you've got to think that they are looking at other things that they can push back. If they think that black folk are going to replace them, they've got to be looking at other things that they can turn back and say, what were legal decisions that were made, and how can we turn that back? Because they're trying to push this thing back to the kind of America that they want in the 50s or the 40s, man. Right? So
Yeah.
I think that that's what we got to be conscious of.
And we also have to be mindful that the same people that say we ought to be here, don't want us here after we get here.
Yeah.
Saying, you have a choice, and they believe in pro-life, but they believe in pro-life for other reasons.
Hold on. Wait a minute. Don't want us here. Shoot, but they got to deal with us now. They don't want us here, but they don't have a choice. You brought us here, now deal with it. And I want to just real quick, because I had to run in there giving. We got a little appreciation thing going with Team Rountree, just with the core team today. So I just stopped by that. But the truth is, when you start talking about theology, I heard Jonathan ask that question, what is our theology? In regards to what these people that are building their decisions and their fight on a spiritual or religious foundation. Theology just means, where's God in all of this? Mm-hmm. Your theological perspective might not be the same as mine. Some people are taking scripture and say they take a piece of it and they build their foundation on this one scripture. You can only change the Lord is my shepherd one way. And that is to say, the Lord is my shepherd. When the Bible is opened, it says in the beginning. You can't change that. There's a beginning. But then there's a history behind that. And some people only go as far as they want to go in explaining to suit their case or their fight. You can say, would you say, Pastor Ali, about capital punishment? Mm-hmm. If you took some of these people that are talking about pro-life, and their wife was raped by one of us, forget pro-life. Mm-hmm. They'd want to hang us, skin us alive, publicly, even in 2022. Mm-hmm. Somebody need to say amen. Because y'all know that's the truth.
Yeah.
Would nobody be in no courtroom talking about no Roe versus Wade if somebody, my complexion or Ali's complexion or someone of with a little dark pigment to their skin, grab one of them, those light women of the lighter persuasion up in Short Hills somewhere, and she got pregnant. Now, some of them can be a little different, and they might say, okay, but go down south and do something like that. I get the same with
just whistle. Come on.
Going down there to some parts of South Carolina and do that with some of these women that still got the Confederate flag hanging in their townships or over their buildings, and let one of us have the baby. Lord have mercy, Jesus. What? Pro-life, when the same ones that's fighting for it will be the same ones fighting against secretly having the child. So it can't be just what's good for them for the moment. It costs a lot of money. But you want us to bring some more in that we can't afford because for some reason birth control is what it is and parenting is not the same. It's a sad commentary, but I don't want to keep going on and on and on about that.
The scriptures say, thou shalt not kill, but we got an army. We have military.
Come on here.
We have wars.
Thou shalt not kill. And we dropping bombs on countries and Listen, if Trump is, Lord, let me not say this because I normally don't do these type of conversations. 4 more years of a previous administration, there would have been a whole lot of killing going on. Them same people is, listen, we was one decision away from a war.
Yeah.
One decision away from a war in the previous administration. One decision. All it would have taken for somebody to say, yep, let's go. And it'd have been over. Thou shalt not kill. Now under Biden's administration, y'all getting ready to come out here. And if we don't make some noise and be proactive here, they come in here next. They're going to start trying to move this through the country.
Pro-life state and pro-choice state. It's going
So
to
there's 3 rallies going on tonight. There's 3 rallies going on tonight. There's a rally going on in I think there's a rally in Cherry Hill, one in South Orange, and one somewhere else. I can't go, but I do know there's some rallies going on. I don't even know whether they pro-life. Somebody sent me something. I'm gonna look at the flyer again, but I do know there's 3 rallies.
I sent it to you.
Oh, that's the green and white one?
I sent it to you.
I have it. Is that pro-life?
No. That's
the one against it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's Hetty, right? That's Hetty?
Yes.
Okay, then I know it's okay. Okay. Y'all just can't go, but there's 3 going on. But we surely need to we need to be ready for when they come and not let them know how we're ready. Because I'm telling you now, if we don't have our forces together and we're not right, they'll come through. I'm just trying to say, states, Trenton need to know, state need to know, folks need to know, and these states that they're coming for, it's not a good thing, Pastor Ali.
They're pro-life, but they're about my church.
They sure will. They sure will. And take the guy who come in and wait a minute, and come in and take the guy who shoot everybody up to McDonald's or Burger King.
Yeah, go get him a Big Mac.
Go take him to Burger King on the way to the police station. Help us, somebody, Lord, help us.
These are very trying times. Very trying times. Here it is, the same people that's fucked up don't want to feed us. Look at the food shortage right now. Look at these supermarkets. Look at the shelves being empty. Look at how many people, and it's not us because we don't make up the majority of America, but look at how many people are on food stamps. How many people are on, as we call in New Jersey, the Family First card. How many people are living below the poverty level. It's not us, but they blame it on us. They say it's us. They say that we can't be eating all the food and then stealing all the food. They got to be
absolutely.
And so when I look at the circumstances of this children, I love children. I love the lives. I love my children that are here. And it's painful, the ones that I made the decision, we made the decisions, but life went on. I lost a son. That was just as painful. I lost a nephew, just as painful to have him here than to have him die. And that's just life and death. And let every man be persuaded by his own mind. Death and life is in the power of the tongue. And they love it shall eat the fruit thereof. God made us as free will agents. We have the right to make choices, whether they are right or wrong. The same people that say they're doing it for religious reasons hate me because of my color. The same people that say they're doing it for religious reasons believe that a $5 an hour minimum wage is fair in 2022. The same people believe that believe in that, don't believe in healthcare across the board. Don't believe in equal rights across the board. They don't even consider us as humans. The same people will kill us like apes, and they'll still say they're pro-life.
And that's absolutely true. And that's absolutely true. And I think that, that's one of the things, Ali, I think that, we've got to get clear on. I think that as Black folks in this country, that, that whole movement on the right with that whole replacement theory, this is only one part of it. trying to control women, trying to
That's
control
right.
their bodies, and trying to control who gets the right to be born and who doesn't
That's
get the right
right.
to be born. All of that is systematic, and that's why one of the things I said to the mayor this week, and in a private conversation he and I was having, I told him that it's one thing, when you talk about people who get elected to office, but if you get elected to office and you don't do nothing to change the system that has kept its foot on your neck,
That's right.
then you become part of that system,
You're
right?
part of the problem.
And that's why when he decided to make that decision, him and LaMonica and all of them, and said we're gonna name this park Harriet Tubman Park anyway, right?
That's right.
Because that's a part of changing the system. That's a part of
That's
being
right.
revolutionary. I didn't say that. I mean that was said by the brother who used to run the Black Panther Party. Right? You don't want to just be part of this system. You want to be part of changing it because it's kept its foot on your neck. And so even here, we've got to get people in office, who are going to be part of helping to change the system, not maintain the status quo, not try to take someone's right to make a decision about what they do with their body. I mean, this is absolutely insane.
Does Clarence Thomas have any kids?
And we got to be clear, Ali. This is not black men, right?
Mm-mm.
These ain't no brothers making these decisions. I mean, there may be one brother up in there named Clarence Thomas, but we ain't calling him a brother. He's just from another mother, but he ain't no brother.
Does he have any children?
I have no idea.
Because I know
do you know Zaid? Does he have any
kids? Be in jail.
He took advantage of Anita Hill, but this wife he got now, I don't know if do they have babies, whatever. So he shouldn't even be writing the dissent or the opinion
think about it.
Based on something he's never experienced. I believe at least if you're going to write about it, at least have some children, at least know the effect of children. And I believe that, when you talk about abortion, that's something that's been talked about, but it was turned over. Roe versus Wade. It was put into a law, and to turn that over just yesterday, the guns, the right to carry undercover, not having to go through a full background check, and then a day later, so on one hand, you say carry a gun to protect yourself. That's a killing machine. But on the next day, say, hey, y'all, we can't kill babies. We can't have abortion. No, we got to write that out. So on Wednesday, you can have your gun. But on Thursday, don't you dare kill a baby.
Right.
And that's all in this week.
And think about this for a moment now. So you get into an argument with someone, Ali, and you think you might have a fair fight, right? But because now you can actually, all of these gun-loving white folk can walk around who can carry a gun legally now, and think about it. Now now they have the right to conceal it, right? So they get into a fight. They're not going to give you a fair one now. So they can pull out their gun, right? And they can literally kill you.
Oh, they're going to start some fights. They're going to start some fights.
And so they can literally pull out their gun and kill you and say they were standing their ground, right?
And anybody,
just look at how it's being set up.
I'm not saying we ever carried a gun. I'm not going to admit that. But the fact of the matter is, those that do carry guns have more energy when they're carrying than they do when they're not.
Oh, yeah,
when
absolutely.
You're not packing, you will avoid certain situations. When you are packing, you will sometimes pursue a situation that doesn't need to be pursued just because you got backup. My daddy always used to tell me, said, if you pull it, you got to use it.
That's what my dad used to say too. Right?
He said, if you pull it, you got to use it. Because he said, if you pull it and don't use it, You're putting yourself on somebody using it on you. And he said,
Right.
nobody needs to know what you're carrying until you saying bang, bang.
Wait a minute. That's with anything. My mother used to say, you ain't got time to argue. She said, while they in your face argue, while you in their face arguing, they're plotting their attack on you. So, you know, just go ahead and do what you're going to do if they get too close. But it's...
and that's the thing, right? So whilst you know, and you know what's interesting, Ali? All of my friends who are police officers tell me the same thing. They all say when you carrying a gun, you actually feel differently and you think differently, right? So if you get into an argument with someone, I mean, you have a whole nother conversation. And you have a whole nother feeling in your mind. You know exactly how far you're going to let someone go before you pull your gun out.
Oh yeah, you definitely got a different mindset, and don't be high with it.
But wait a minute, hold on. Forget pulling a gun out. Folks carry more than guns. You know what I'm saying? They carry more than guns. They carry other things. You can have a gun. Hold on, the guy in Tops had a gun. Y'all do know that, right?
Yeah.
But the person who shot him didn't have on a police vest. He had on a police vest, rather. So the guy shot back at the perpetrator, but when he shot at the cop, he killed the cop. And he was still able to kill all those people and shoot all those people up in Tops supermarket. So there's no such thing as protection from cowards. There's no
watch
such.
Watch this. He apologized to white folk that he encountered in the supermarket. Oh, I'm sorry. He moved on to the next aisle.
You can't make this stuff up.
You can't make that up.
You can't make it up. You cannot make it up.
The white folk that was in the aisle, he said, "Oh, my bad. I apologize. This is not for you."
Can't make it up.
And moved on to the next aisle.
Cannot make it up. My Lord.
You know, you're absolutely right. But you know, here's the other piece to that. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw the video, right? But the video will show you where he actually went to kill one person and he recognized she was not black. He actually moved on. I saw the video.
That's what I'm talking about. He moved on, and some people that were in the
supermarket, he moved to another aisle. That's what you were talking about, Ali.
Yeah. He apologized.
Yeah.
Baba, you might be quiet on this.
Baba upset. His blood is boiling.
Baba
and
is like,
you know, I mean, we're gonna be on this for a minute. I you know, this is a heavy piece.
The Roe versus Wade takes us back to being on the block, being on the market, and then putting us up on display, trying to make decisions on what our value is and what the value of what we cannot allow. We can't. I don't know what type of people are fighting this battle down in these other states where it was on. I don't know. I don't know who's fighting those battles, but just like the voting rights, I mean, it's going to be some crazy stuff with them trying to take us in reverse. And that's exactly where we're going. If people don't open their mouths, and a lot of times, you know, they say the squeaky wheel gets the oil. We got to do more than open our mouths. We got to show up. People are used to us talking, and you know, that's why I always bring up the Million Man March. I always bring that up because it was possible to march on Washington with 1 million men. That was possible, you know, but we can't possibly get together on one accord for issues that really matter. We got 5 over here, 10 over there, 20 over here, because they don't want to come together because they're not leading it. The truth of the matter is people trying to reinvent the wheel when we got people that will stand in the front. It doesn't matter who's leading the march. What matters is the cause that we're marching or making the noise or trying to get results for.
Well, you're right about that, Roundtree. But our problem is that we still got a selfish mentality. It does matter.
That's what I'm saying. I didn't put it that way, but that's exactly what it is. We so self-centered and you know, I heard the mayor say, a couple of years ago, and I think you might have been in that meeting when he had all the grassroots organizations, all the anti-violence groups
I
together,
was there.
and
I was
and he
there.
said, I've led the rallies, I've been in the protests. He said, and this is such a valid point. He says, I'm the mayor now. I got to do the same thing. He said, there's nobody out here that can bring the people together and do the same thing. My thing is, you mean to tell me nobody was watching that can do it? Ali was out there with him, but there were some younger folks out there with him. And what is happening is they're looking for the same people to be in the front. Larry Ham is still doing it. He's still making noise. He's still out here doing what's necessary to try to stand on the ground. But we only come when we think it's time for us to come, if we got time to come. That selfish, self-centered, egocentric attitudes, instead of being people, as Council would say, people-centric. This thing is about the people. And what happens to our children, what affects our pastors and our congregations and our community really affects all of us individually. And we don't see it that way because it's not in because your house didn't get shot up. You don't think that you should be concerned about the person down the street whose house might have gotten shot up because you don't have any children in elementary school anymore. You don't think that you should be fighting for who's going to be sitting on the school board and what's the budget and why your children are not eating certain things. You come on.
It's so painful. It's a lot going on, and we are watching it go by us. We can't even hang on to apartments. We can't even hang on to houses. We can't hang on to jobs. Stuff are going on around us. The children in schools, all these different things. It's amazing that we celebrate the graduations of kindergartners. We celebrate the graduations of preschoolers, because 9 out of 10, a lot of them won't make it to the 8th grade.
Yeah, that's real talk. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's real talk.
And I'm going to tell you something. When they got them in Bentleys in the kindergarten, they should, what? When they getting in Bentleys in kindergarten, what they got to look forward to in high school?
You're right.
What they got to look forward to?
Because it's not the car. You can rent a car, but it's better to be the owner.
Yeah, and when you think about that, how big and grand some of these graduations are at the end of the day, man, we've got to get our priorities in check, because I think if we don't, Ali, not that I think, I mean, I know, right? We see the handwriting on the wall, and the problem is that we want to act like that's not really going on, right? That's why I think from my perspective with Zaid, one of the things we talk about is this Black United Front, right? Black folk I think we've got to come to the place, Ali. We got to begin to, we're not against anybody, right? But we've got to be for each other, man. We just got to
have you got to have your own. Right. It's like being a landlord. Yeah. It's like being a homeowner. You got to protect. You have to have interest, self-interest in what you own. You have to take ownership.
Right.
We as people of color, so to speak, we have to take ownership of that. We have to believe in that, because when we look at people that look like us, and then they say they're not us.
Right.
No, I come from this, I come from that. I wasn't born here, I wasn't raised here. And if you watched the draft last night, you watch all them people that got drafted last night, and you watch them brothers who came from different countries. But somewhere along the line, somebody had to claim ownership, because Daddy was from here. Mm-hmm. Daddy had went around the world and spread his oats. Mm-hmm. And whether he had a black wife or a white wife, when it came down, that son had to go back and say, well, Daddy from here, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I think, people don't look at it. Okay, you got 38 millionaires, whatever the league is, 32. They guaranteed 32 million, the heirs. But look at how many others coming behind them. They got to fight. may not make it 1 year, 2 year. You look at all of the rappers right now that are killing themselves, are getting killed, are going back to jail. It's like we're going backwards.
Yeah. And what I say to that, Ali, is that, listen, man, we've got to recognize that we need a heart transplant, right? You know, we've got to change our mind. We've got to fall in love with each other, and we, you know, because the only way we're gonna change this thing is that we've got to change our mind. You know this, Ali. You know, you don't stop a particular behavior until you change the way you think about it, right?
The mindset, that's right.
Yeah, right. So if you're an alcoholic and you don't change your mindset about drinking alcohol, you're gonna keep drinking it, right? And that's the same way with us killing each other. That's the same with us not being in love with each other, right? You know, if you see disdain and calling your brother the nigger, and you change your way of thinking about that, well, you ain't gonna hurt that brother because he's your brother, right? But if you don't change your mindset about it, you're gonna believe every evil thing that you've ever heard about your own people, and you're not gonna have any love for your people, and then you're not gonna have any love for yourself or anyone else. So you're gonna walk around and have this incredible, crazy mindset of this nigga, and you're gonna do nigga things. That's just real talk. Right?
Yeah, you're ignorant.
And Ali, we've got to start having real talk, and we can't wait for white folk to tell us we can have that, right? We can't wait for white folk to tell us to talk to each other like that.
What's the professor from Princeton? Who's the professor from Princeton? Black history professor.
Eddie Galt?
No, older. Contemporary of.
Oh, you talking about Zaid? You know who she's talking about
with the afro,
right?
He's not there anymore. You talking about Cornel West?
Yes. You know, one of the things that Cornel West purposely does is when he greets you in love. And he'll stop and say, "I love you, my brother." You know, and even when he's about to possibly quote unquote have a difference of opinion with you, he starts out in a spirit of love. And we can remember one of the biggest when they were on the panel when they used to do State of Black America, and when he respectfully disagreed, I believe with maybe it was Farrakhan, or they were talking about the house was burning down. But when he opened up his sentence, he was like, "That's why I love my brother." We have to speak the spirit of love to each other, because this right here is not working. What we're doing, and not caring for one another. We have to care for each other before we expect anybody else to care for us.
Yep, you're right.
Donna,
it's not working.
Donna, I'm glad I know you're not that dark.
I know, my camera, I'm trying to know. I'm trying to always get this light right. Hey, Pastor. There you go. I got my light. You see it right here. There I go. It's like I got to hold it like this. I got to get this light right. Like, where you at?
Like this set by the door, girl.
But I'm serious. We've got to change that. You know.
Well, mine it's about love. One of my daughters asked me this week about God loves and the love of God, so to speak. And the bottom line is, I told her, in order, God loves us, but you got to love yourself. That's God love. God loving yourself. And then you got to start loving your creation that's created like you in his image.
Yep.
And I said, until you do that, then you will hate folk, love the folk that hate you, and hate the folk that love you.
Yep, that's absolutely true.
You know, I said, because they program you that way, to think that they are concerned about you. But I said, we are created in the image of God. And I said, once you get a hold of God, then you got to love those that look like you. They come from the same womb as you, come from the same neighborhood. How you going to hate your neighbor? next door. Better yet, from a Christian point of view, and this is scripture, I'm going to love God who I never seen.
That's right.
And can't love my brother or sister who I see every day.
That's right.
That's hypocritical.
That's right.
And you know, that's not biblical. You know, I got to love that who he's already placed on this earth, created in his image.
That's right.
You know, made like him, bleed like I bleed, breathe like I breathe, eat like I eat, concerned about the pursuit of happiness, want to be free, want to be happy, want to be safe, want to mature, want their children to grow up in a healthy and safe environment. We control the neighborhood.
And you know, Ali, part of that is really about how we've been educated, right, as Black people and as Black children, right, on two fronts. One is if you think about that experiment back in the day, remember that doll experiment, right?
Yes.
When they would do that with the kids, they take the black doll and the white
Brown versus
doll.
Board of Education, and Brown versus Board of Education is going to be next. Be clear about that.
And remember, right, they would at Zaid, they'd ask that question, right? Where they'd say, put them dolls in front of kids and say which one was the good doll and which one was the bad doll, right? And someone said this somewhere online this week. I saw they said, so now that white folk have agreed to give us Juneteenth as a holiday, does that mean we can now teach white children the truth about slavery? Does that mean we can teach them the truth now?
Well, most states have not enacted Juneteenth. It's a federal holiday, but most states have not enacted it. Right? So, this fight for recognition is a long way from over.
And we had to share it with Father's Day.
Yeah, ain't that something? Right.
They should have moved Father's Day. Yeah.
Yeah.
But here's the point, right? Does that mean now, right, since there's a federal holiday, does that mean all of these teachers who were threatened to be fired because they couldn't teach the Amistad Law, Zaid, or they couldn't teach proper history? So when Juneteenth is coming around, does that mean we can now, if we're teachers, does that mean we can tell little Tommy, right? Well, Tommy, we want you to do this book report, Tommy, but we want you to do this book report and tell us what really happened with Abraham Lincoln and let us know, did he own any slaves, right? Mm-hmm. We want, or tell us the truth about Christopher Columbus, right, Tommy, right? And let's see if you're able to keep your Black job, right? Because there's some folks, whom I believe, right, that no matter what, just like Condoleezza Rice said, I was telling Kim this today. Remember when Condoleezza Rice was on the show with Whoopi Goldberg, and she said that the problem with that is if you tell little white children the truth, it's going to hurt their feelings. Right?
Yeah, hurt their feelings. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, so our feelings can be hurt, our mental state can be messed up.
No, we can be killed, castrated, bought, sold, raped, burned, slaughtered. But they, we can't have a discussion to clean somebody's feelings up. I know we run out of time. I was trying to let y'all talk, and
all right.
No, but I wanted you to talk. I wanted you to talk. You know why, Baba? And I've been on mute because I've been walking around a particular place. But I wanted you to talk because you know what? You are not afraid to speak truth to power. You've been doing this thing a very, very long time. And that's what we have to do. If it's truth, we should not fear. I'm telling you, I got elected. Okay, Jonathan, we still got, it's 7 o'clock. Okay, it just hit 7 o'clock. The mayor's meeting is going on right now. While we talk about freedom and having everything we supposed to have, the mayor is having an event right now. It's for the men's meeting, which you're aware of, Brother Riley, trying to help us be aware of what really is already ours.
Well,
we just have to go get it.
Thank God for it's politics. All politics local.
Thank you. You're supposed to be doing closing remarks, right?
They came on. We got to close, baby. We got to move on.
Okay, let's move on. I love you, Pastor Ali.
I love you too, girl.
Thank you for Brother Ed Riley for allowing us to be on the #1 all politics and local hip hop number one radio.
And you behave yourself while I'm gone. You behave yourself.
I love you guys. Thank you, Ed Riley. Thank you so much, Barbara.
You.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. The police.
And thank you all too. I appreciate you.
And let me just say, and Ed, next time we on our next show and we come back with the disciples, it will be Councilwoman. Now.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Congratulations. I haven't seen you since then, so congratulations, Council-elect, future Councilwoman, Reverend Louise Scott-Rountree.
I'm there because of all of you and the people. I didn't do this by myself. I'm there because of all of you. And I'm going to do everything in my power to stay ethical, to stay honest, to make sure that not just ethical, but legal as well. Because it's because of the people we are where we are. We did not put ourselves here. We got here because you believed and because God positioned us. So under Mayor Baraka and the North Municipal Council, I am going to serve, and serve some more. And that's it. And that's enough. Men's meeting tonight. Whole bunch of stuff coming on. Best man in the city of Newark, Mayor Raz J. Baraka. Yes, I'm going to keep on saying it because y'all know how I feel. I love you all. But then the best radio station is all hip hop, all politics and local. So you guys, thank you. Minister Haqq Muhammad, we missed you tonight. We missed you. But I'm alaikum, and we're looking forward to next month when we come back with the disciples. Brother Jonathan, I'm out. I'm good. Love you.
Hey, take care.
We did 50 minutes over time.
Yes. All right. So that is the segment of the disciples that comes on every single month. We always loved and honored to have them here. Tonight was especially interesting, especially because we're talking about, we have three theologians who are part of the show, right? We have people who dedicate their life to God who are part of the show. And just that juxtaposed with the Roe v. Wade decision and see how what types of Black theology are very different from other types of theology that actually are controlling the Supreme Court. So it was great hearing from them for this segment. But for the next segment, we are introducing our guest co-host. We are glad and honored to have you back on the show, Jakki Lake. Jakki Lake is a motivational speaker. She is, I don't know if she wants me to say this, but she's a bit of a political insider, right? Helping with campaigns and she is and a writer as well. The first time we had her on the show, she was talking about a children's book that she wrote, and so and in line with the types of motivational speaking that she does. So, Jakki Lake, welcome to All Politics are Local. Welcome on as a guest host, and we are glad to have you back.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me back once again. Hi, everyone.
Hey, so before we jump into some of the topics of the day that we're going to talk about in terms of getting your take on some of these decisions, and because really, the news today, I don't know about you, but it just seems like there's one story. There was a story yesterday, like on guns, and today, ironically, it's like another one story. So, but before we get into all the politics of the day, tell us something about the types of motivational speaking that you do. Who is Jakki Lake?
Who is Jakki Lake? Jakki Lake is a child of
all politics are local. Don't leave that out.
That's right. Jakki Lake is a servant. I'm a servant leader. I believe in God. I try to raise my children to the best of my ability. I try to help raise other children in the same fashion in which I raised mine. I try to put the Most High first and just make positive decisions and make an impact in the community. Our community needs it. Our families need it. Somebody who is focused and dedicated and passionate and compassionate and truly believes in our community and building and strengthening of our people. So that's part of who I am. In terms of my talks, I do talks wherever I'm needed, wherever a good word needs to be spread, wherever there needs to be some motivation, whether it's in a drug rehab facility, whether it's in a school, an organization, corporate, celebrity, wherever I'm needed, that's where I'm at, building up my people.
All right, thank you. And where did Donna go?
I'm right here.
She's sitting in the dark over there.
Oh, okay. All right, fair. So, So let's just jump right into it. What's the story of the week? What's going on with this overturning Roe v. Wade? We heard it was coming. We knew it was coming. Is it different once it's here?
Overturn the Roe v. Wade while you're carrying a concealed weapon.
Exactly. It's funny. As I've been watching the headlines and reading some of the stories and digging in, the word that comes to my mind is accountability, right? Because even with the abortion piece and with the whole gun piece, it really is rooted in accountability. We all have choices that we have to make. We have decisions that we have to live by and be okay with it. But it seems like, unfortunately, many times what happens is the people who are trying to do the right thing kind of get caught up in there and are judged upon and grouped up in the people who are not necessarily doing the right thing. So I definitely find it interesting. I find it interesting.
And Donna, oh, you're there. Zaid, I know you talked about some things, but what's going on, man?
How can we not talk about this, right? And I'll say several things. First, I want to shout out. I think we need to have another discussion next week. There's a rough, beautiful sister named Michelle Godwin. Got a book out on the racial dimensions of the battle for the woman's womb, right? There's some good work that the ACLU has done on reproductive rights for what that looks like in New Jersey. And we've got a veteran labor organizer named Hetty Rosenstein who organized 3 rallies at the same time, had them all ready, when this whole decision drops. I think there's a place for a multiracial and intergenerational discussion amongst women who, raising hell on this question that need to be heard. Also want to, as a male organizer and freedom fighter, I want to apologize that we haven't done enough to protect women in this respect. Mm-hmm. We just haven't done enough. And I know some of us have given our lives to this thing we call struggle for trying to create a better world. We should be in a fundamentally different place. But the United States of America is a settler colonial state, and the settler colonial states are the most racist, the most violent, and the most dangerous, and the most sexist. Absolutely. Right, and the most sexist. We should be in a place, in a country that professes what it professes, and we should be in a place where a woman's right to choose should not just be a place that can be a right one day and gone the next day. It should be embedded to the very document that's supposed to be the foundation for this country. There should be an equal rights amendment. When I can remember, I'm old enough to remember when Roe v. Wade was passed. Right, it was one of the few high points that we had coming out of the 60s, going into the 70s. Right, and right behind that should have been the Equal Rights Amendment to the Constitution. Right, coming behind the Voting Rights Act should have been a Voting Rights Amendment. Right, so that would not have left the voting rights as vulnerable as it has been, because they've already gutted that in 2012 with Shelby versus State of Alabama, and that will go further with what these Trumpites are already doing on the Supreme Court. And then finally, we need to understand too that Trump, just because Biden won the election in November, the presidency of Donald Trump, and this is evidence of what we're talking about, for all of its limitation and bizarre dimensions, was successful in terms of them fulfilling their backwards agenda, right? And we have to undo that by out organizing some folks who are stacking the deck legally to make it almost impossible for to do this if we accept things as they are. And the thing is that we cannot. And Ed jumped off. Ed is one of our prime sponsors for the upcoming National Black Political Convention to mark the 50th anniversary of Gary. This is why that convention is so important. Mm-hmm. We need that united front. I just want to what's left of our rights at all costs. We cannot afford to lose any more ground to these crazy people on the right wing. We cannot do it.
And I just want to like pose a question. Yeah, I just want to pose a question, throw some stuff out there. As I look at this, as I look at it posed in terms of taking away a woman's right to an abortion, and I see, Black women being like, nah. I see Black men being like, nah. I see some white women being like, nah. But can we really just come to grips with, if it weren't for the majority of white women, like significant majority of white women, a woman's right to choose would not be in danger. An equal rights amendment would have been passed. Like the majority, like they voted for Trump twice, would vote for him again. I mean, can we talk about that? Can we talk about just the ways in which in red states where the right to choose is in danger, and where not coincidentally voting rights are under attack, right? Mm-hmm. That they're white, the majority of white women who are down with white men in doing this is not. So I think to some extent,
you need psychology of the settler, little brother. That's what we're talking about.
But is it psychology, or are they voting their interest? Like I'm tired of looking at white women as victims in this, right? Especially when they benefit. I do not like the language that says, "Oh, they just don't know what they're doing."
Trumps everything. Pardon my language.
Right. So they're not. So let's not look at white women as victims in this, and let's have a real. I mean, in terms of these red states, these. Because if Clarence Thomas does not even close to represent the majority of Black people,
he should be off the Supreme Court, and his wife should be in jail.
Right, but if the majority of Black people voted for Trump or voted against civil rights, or like civil rights bad, we'd have to question a lot of things about, well, what are the nature of these rights? Let's talk to Black people. Like there are a whole lot of questions that will come up that just don't come up. We don't even talk about it. So I don't know. I just like.
Jackie,
I think sometimes our analysis.
Come on in, Queen. Jump on in.
When we take it back to the essence of who we are, right, and how we were all created, Scripture goes and tells us how He knew you before we were in the womb, right? So we automatically have a responsibility to nurture and protect and provide and carry. So I definitely understand our brothers have to do a better job, but we have to put some weight on our sisters. Our sisters must do a better job, because in terms of abortion, there are about 60% of Black and Hispanic women making these decisions, right? So that means you have about 40% or so of other women. And mind you, within those decisions that are being made, those are only tracked in terms of places that are like qualified places to perform abortions. So like, for instance, in 2018, there were over 22,936 abortions just in New Jersey, right? So imagine how many kings we could have, brought forth through our womb had we chosen to do so, right? So I understand there are a myriad of situations that people deal with and make certain decisions, but really data shows, and even with me speaking amongst friends and family and doing a lot of work in the community, a lot of women who have had abortions, their reasoning for doing so is because it's going to interfere with my education. In terms of, their work and different job opportunities. They don't want to be a single mom sometimes. Also financial constraints. It's things of that nature, right? Nothing that's really harming their health or something like that. And then when we break down further in terms of the demographics of abortions, about 9% of the women who have abortions are under 20 years old, right? And then we have only about 3% under 18, but over half of women that have abortions are actually in their 20s, right? About 27% are between 20 to 24, 30% are 25 to 39, and another 30% is about in their 30s, right? So what makes a woman make some of those decisions in the first place before you even get to the point of conception, right? And that's why I opened up saying
and Jax also, I would love to see the numbers of the person, especially when we go back when Roe versus Wade was being litigated. Who was that fight for? Was it for primarily Black women? Was it for primarily white women? And why? And like you said, the question why? Because we want to know who are when the woman gets pregnant, is it because perhaps the father is unacceptable to the family because of the family name? They would never do that outside of marriages. The reasons for abortion too is really something that we need to look at, and we need to look at who is this fight primarily for, because I would venture to say just, that it may not be as much for us, but what happens is when we go do it, we're the people in the back alleys getting on kitchen tables having these abortions that are killing us. So it's you know, I
No,
don't know.
absolutely. And the whole accountability factor is if we as women really stand up and act like women and make better choices, right? Overall, you know, I understand some women are raped and have gone through some other, you know, traumas, right? But as a whole, a lot of these women who are electing this they haven't chose contraception. More importantly, they haven't chosen abstinence or celibacy in any way. They're just,
Right.
I mean, we all see these girls, you know, walking around town, you know, thoughting about or whatever you want to call it. So we know some of the decisions that some of these women are making. And granted, our brothers couldn't sleep with 5, 6, and 7 women sometimes if the women all said, no, enough's enough.
Right.
I value myself. I value myself as a woman and as a human being, as a child of God. And I'm not going to let any guy run up in me because he's cute or because he has a nice car or because he's funny, right? Or because he got waves or a little earring hanging on the side, right? We have to really just be careful and just be accountable for our actions so that we're not even faced with some of that. And if you think about it, when it was originally written, right, there has always been a plight to stop our growth, right? There has always been a plight to stop us from multiplying. So if they could do something like this to stop us from raising strong generations of people that look like us, it's going to be done. You know, it's such a larger concept behind it that we really need to examine as well.
You're muted, Jonathan.
Sorry, I'm getting a little. I'm a little confused because it sounds like, and clarify for me because I'm not quite sure, right? My Roe v. Wade was just overturned, and both of you seem to be talking about how we need to rethink, like, because my own position is I don't care why someone gets an abortion, right? Mm-hmm. Woman, her right to choose, it's her body. I understand the sanctity of life, but life, to me, it's a part of the mother. She's just as much involved as the baby itself, and that's why it's her choice, right? It is both. It is, even if you consider it a life within the womb, it is a life that is intricately connected to the mother. And so I don't see it as the same as a human baby. I see it as something that is connected to the mother, hence her decision. You're talking about lots of reasons, or it seems like you're talking about reasons why Black women have too many abortions. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm just trying to see. I'm just trying to see if what I'm hearing is what I'm hearing.
And for me, Jonathan, I'm sorry, for me, I'm not saying Black women are having too many abortions. I don't think Black women are having too many abortions. I don't think it's Black women. I think that, and Jax just said something about controlling, so to speak, our population. That's something they did because the fear of us outnumbering them or whatever. So I don't see it like that. I'm just concerned that this fight, like you said, it is our choice, but I don't know, and I could be wrong because I wasn't there, you know, when Roe v. Wade came up and the issues were at the top of women's agendas. And then when you segregate, you know, like take the Black women and put them in the room, and then maybe take the white women and then maybe other, did they all come up with the number one issue that we need to fight was abortion? I'm just curious. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to clarify, Jonathan, I'm just speaking in terms of the data. What the data is showing, and you can go online and Google, you know, abortions, look by, you know, race, you know, ethnicity. You can look at, you know, the ages. So looking at that data, and I mean, also personally, I know a lot of, you know, people in the community and outside of our immediate community, and people are having them, and they have been having them since forever, right?
But are you saying that having abortion is bad and there need to be fewer?
According to scripture, and I know everyone doesn't go according to, you know, scripture and God knowing us before we were in the womb. So, you know, everybody kind of governs themselves differently, you know, but just according to scripture and according to data is what I'm, you know, specifically speaking of right now. You know,
so how is that connected to the overturning of Roe v. Wade? Like, because if I'm putting that together, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but are you saying that there was something positive about this decision? I'm asking you.
Yeah. So in some ways, but like I said, it's not totally black and white. I see the pros, I see the cons, but I also see the black and white data, right? And I also hear the conversations that I have within my community, with women, making some of these choices. I know even, in different suburbs. I remember growing up, driving through different towns and coming through Newark and everywhere, and I would see people sometimes with the abortion signs out, and I always, wondered about that. Why are some people so adamant about not having an abortion? Then you have the other people on the other side of the street with their signs, saying, it's a good thing to do it. You have a right. So as I grow and as I learn and as I continue to work within the community, and also within my faith walk, certain things have changed, right? And certain views, have changed. So I to each his own. Whatever people decide to do is, what they decide, ultimately to do.
But isn't the whole point of being mad about Roe v. Wade that it's the government that is essentially imposing a white theology on everybody, right? Like there's a particular white theology, right? Like, or there's a particular theology that is advocated by white people, white men and women, right? Like I ain't saying men just advocating for it. It's white men and white women advocating for it staunchly, right?
Absolutely.
Churches, religious organizations, activists, they are as a community advocating it. Isn't the lack of, like, is the decision something that should be universally condemned as an over encroachment of church versus state, imposing or taking away choice from people? Like, because I hear you, but you're saying that it's a gray area. It's a gray issue. Is Roe v. Wade being overturned a gray issue to you?
I still think in some ways, yes, because I mean, like I say, to each his own. Everyone kind of thinks differently, philosophically and spiritually, and they handle things differently. So I try not to delve into it, too much with certain, laws, speaking about it like in forums like this. So I will speak to, the empirical data. I will speak to the spiritual, component of it. And like I said, I kind of see the pros and the cons just holistically, as well. And I see how it has impacted people. So it has some pros and it has some cons. And I guess that's why situations like that with laws, it takes some time to pass, or the battles are for 50 years and, back and forth. But no, like the government shouldn't tell us, what we can and cannot do, because we know historically they weren't on our side, essentially, right? So we still have to look at what are the outcomes of their decisions, good and bad, and we have to govern ourselves so that sometimes we're not caught up and swept up in this type of conversation anyway, because we more so governed ourselves more effectively.
Okay, so and with Donna, is your view very similar? Because I was hearing you saying similar things, as in, who was Roe v. Wade for? Like, again, my views are like, I don't care why a woman gets an abortion. I think it's a question of freedom. I think that they're violating a right to privacy that can extend beyond. If they can regulate a woman's right to choose, they can regulate a lot of other stuff too. Include, like, the abortion decision was based on them trying to ban contraception, right? Like that, like they were literally trying to ban contraception, and the privacy laws that kind of brought about, or the privacy interpretation, right, that brought about Roe v. Wade. There's a lot of stuff that backs that, right? Like, as in interracial marriage, same-sex marriage, like all these things are on the same line of there are certain personal private behaviors that the state can't govern. And so for me, it is a black and white issue. It is like, nah, they should not be able to tell a woman what to do. But I see that, so I know that for you that there's more to it than that. For Jakki Lake, for Donna, is there more to it than that?
For me, I just think that we handle our issues a little different. I think morally, in an old-fashioned way. It wasn't so much about terminating. It was about removing the woman from the scene for a period of time, and when she comes back on the scene, she has a little sister or something like that. I think that our moral issues are very different. Um, that I mean, yes, we should have the right to choose, but given that choice, oftentimes I don't believe that becomes our issue, but it should be there. And I think we're going very, very backwards. And just to think that um, this vote came up at a time where women were a part of this vote. It's just mind-boggling to me. But again, for my community, I don't believe these are things that if we separated us into, again, the African American community, I don't know, the Anglo-Saxon community, the other, that I don't believe that this was one of our top 10 concerns. Yes, we should have the right, but there are a whole lot of more issues that are important to us as Black women. And I will finally say that the most upsetting part about this is that you have a court that says that say they can determine this, but once that baby is out of the womb, they can care less about that baby. They're not worried about feeding that baby. They're not worried about housing that baby. So it's something to me that it's a whole lot of lip service without anything to back up.
Okay, Baba Zaid, what do you think about, like, because it's interesting because sometimes you get answers that you don't expect. Like Jakki Lake, I didn't see it coming, and so and that's what these conversations are for, right? Like, Zaid, I know that your position is a lot different. What's your reaction?
It's anti-democratic, right? It's a revolution that fight for democracy, right? And this is the anti-democratic expression that's both racist and sexist, right? And we need to call it that. It's about a segment of the population that is trying to prepare the country for minority rule, right? There's so many levels to this, right? But it's all of those handful of rights that we got left that we thought were etched in stone, and in similar cases like Brown versus Board of Education or whatnot, they're all on the chopping block. They're all on the chopping block, right? And
because they can take out Roe v. Wade, they can take out anything.
It's this replacement theory that's driving this behavior from these crazy white folks, right? Is a real place for them. They are really.
Can you explain the connection between white people and replacement theory and the Roe v. Wade decision? Like you made that connection.
It depends on where you want to take it from. We could take it from the high place of Frances Cress Welsing's great work, or we could take it from this is hip hop. We could take it from the Fear of a Black Planet, right? In the language of hip hop, right? But it's just the same point, right? The world is this country is drowning.
Frances Cress Welsing with that, actually.
Yeah. So so it's all of these elements, are there, and in the end, it's just totally, it's backwards as hell. It's dangerous as hell. 50 years ago, how dangerous was it for Black women medically to have to go through, the ordeal of trying to deal with something like this, right? We were in a far different place medically. The emergence of this whole branch of medical science, gynecology, was built on the torture, the savage, sinister, genocidal torture of Black women's wombs by white men. You ever heard the father of gynecology, this crazy cracker named Marion Sims, who used to practice on black women and dream about how he was going to cut them up.
Right.
It's some really the roots of this stuff is some really sick stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's some really, really sick stuff. But you know, the fight is for democracy. You know, and this is a loss in the fight for democracy, and we need to regroup and understand that, and fight harder for some democracy.
Now, Jax, I want to call on you for this in terms of when we're looking at like I know that you brought up questions of personal choice and personal morality, right?
Mm-hmm.
But isn't it dangerous when those questions of personal choice become forced by law?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is dangerous. However, with Roe v. Wade, if they're saying, you know, women can't have an abortion, right? Or, you know, it's going to be illegal here from the spiritual standpoint and from the biblical standpoint, technically we're not supposed to be doing that anyway, right? So I understand it like from that perspective, but then from the perspective in terms of every woman having a choice to govern their own body, absolutely, they should have that right. But that's why I say it's almost like a, you know, somewhat of a gray area. You know, when I was younger, I definitely believed like, you know, stuff happens if you got to, you know, do what you got to do. And it's, you know, things happen. We all make poor choices at some time, unfortunately, in our lives. You know, so some women elect to do that. Right. So with, with wisdom and growth and a deeper understanding of certain, you know, walks and paths, I just still, you know, pray for my community that we just start to make, like I, you know, continue to echo, some better choices so that we don't even have to have that as an issue. Are we going to have one or not? For the most part, like I said, unless you're, you know.
But isn't the issue deeper than that personal choice? Like isn't the danger, like, for example, Esperanza Martel
that's
brought
one of my teachers. I was getting ready to shout her out. She raised the question of sterilization.
Right, and it's a question that is real. Like they used to sterilize Black women, right? Like in terms of prisons, they would say that because you have done something, because you have lived in a way we don't like, we are taking away your right to choose to have a child, right? Like if the state has the power to determine when you can and cannot have a child, what does to stop the other end of it?
No, I totally agree. I totally get that part. But like I said, when I look at the other side of it, I say, okay, we have to govern our own bodies better, right? We can't be, listen, I know so many women who simply use abortions or the, I forgot what it's called, day after pill or whatever, as literally like a sign of birth control. Like it's so much cheaper to just obviously buy a pack of condoms or, you know, just, you know, not put yourself in that position to do that, you know, until you're, you know, married. I know we've come so far away from that. But I think the further we've come away from the marriage and trying to have a child within the confines, you know, of a marriage, you know, between two consenting, responsible, you know, adults, and we just are kind of like willy-nilly out in our community, eventually that degrades in the value of our community and how we live. Because I've been out with women and like girls have said like, oh, girl, I just left getting an abortion, you know, like it's nothing. Let's go party right now. You know, and as opposed to it being, you know, utilized for one purpose, it's just like literally instead of you, or I've even had women say, you know what, I had 3 abortions. I'm never going to do that again. And before you know it, it's like 5 more times. Like you would have had 2 baseball teams, you know, by now. So it's like, when does it stop? So we have to still take accountability for our own actions before the government even steps in and has a word to say about it.
But I guess the thing I'm pressing is, why is that any of our business? Like, why is it our business that you might disagree with someone's decision or the way they present their decision, right? Like I hear it, right? Like there may be some people that I know, a lot of people who've had abortions. I know them. I don't know. I haven't really run into anyone that you run into like that. But even if there were, right? Like even if, you know, like there are people like that who have abortions in that way, like, why is that my business?
Yeah, no, not at all. And it's not mine either. You know, it's not mine either. So everyone has their own, they should have that choice to do what it, like I said before, to do whatever they want to do. But I still do understand the biblical, you know, side of it in terms of us just governing ourselves better. So, I mean, the government, they imposed COVID on us, the vaccine on us, and they imposed, you know, so many other things on us. And they've imposed a zillion things since the beginning of time. right? The Constitution and so many other things have been imposed upon us, but it's still, as we move forward, we just have to still just do better as a people, to just watch, just be careful of the decisions we make, but it's not fully their responsibility to tell us what to do or not to do. But if we take better care of our communities and better care of our bodies and better care of our minds, right? The government can't say but so much to us because we're governing ourselves. And I think we just have to take more accountability as a people and govern ourselves so that we're not stuck with some of those, mandates. You know what I mean?
We're going to agree to disagree on this.
Yeah, it's fine.
Stuff, right? And that's part of what's going on in the country, right? Like we have to, like, there are things that are going on that, that we just need more discussion about, right? Like to see where we are.
Yeah, that's the gray area, right? That I'm speaking. I definitely understand both sides.
It's gray to you, but that's why we say, I got you, right?
And Jack, so and this is a political hip hop show, and one of the things is this your first time on?
No, second.
But she's co-hosting the second part too, so she's not going off yet.
Okay.
When you can ask the questions, she's going to be on all night.
Well, let me ask for this segment.
We do have our next guest who's right in the back. We have it, and we're all continuing, but we have our next guest. That's right in the back, and that's Bob Gumbs. And Bob, are you ready? If you're ready, just put your camera on.
He might be on his phone. He may have trouble doing that.
Okay. And actually, his mic and camera are not connected. So we're going to continue. I'm going to call on Donna. We're going to continue. But
so
Zai, if you can talk to Bob Gumbs and get him to start, while Donna, it's on you.
So, Jax, as we continue, we're going to ask this to you twice tonight. Around this Supreme Court and these decisions that came out, do you run to your stereo? Is there something that be like, and you put a song on, a hip hop song, or individual or group that kind of?
I was going to say you could continue. She's going to be here all night, so we don't have.
I'm going to ask her. I said I'm going to ask her twice. I just want to know, around this issue, is there something that kind of gets your mind steady so that you're not so frustrated about people making decisions about our bodies and how we move and everything?
Honestly, I don't really
having trouble, aren't you?
Right?
I see.
My television on. I do listen to a lot of music. I have several groups that I really like, that I go to. I listen to like audio, whether it be of the Bible or different scriptures or something that I can learn and glean knowledge from and just build myself up spiritually, right? So I try not to let the woes of the day, because I see so many people that are so embedded in the news, and of course we have to be aware of what's going on. But my journey is really digging back deeper into our history and who we are as a people, to truly understand where we're going or where we need to go or are trying to go, and how I could build and impact my community on an even greater level. So I definitely don't get caught up really too much with watching the news and hearing the same repetitious stories and certain things. Eventually you become what you think and what you believe and what you see all the time. So I just try not caught up in it. Even my children, I have a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old. They hardly ever watch television either. A week can go by and maybe we'll have the TV on twice.
Yeah. Okay. You're going by. I like that. I really, really like that. It's not commanding your attention all the time. So that's a good thing.
Not at all. Not at all. And
what about these guns?
Actually, Donna, before we move on to the conversation about guns, because Bob's not here yet. So I do want to, before we change the subject, I do want to ask. I was gonna, before I knew Bob wasn't around, I was gonna ask you another question, right? Like, you're talking about a lot of individual choice and responsibility, but part of the reason, women, girls go through a lot, right? As in, I'm a teacher. There are so many students that I've come across who have been raped, molested, right? Like, there's so many things that happen to determine those choices. It seems like being forced to have a child, I can never have, I can never get pregnant, but it seems like being forced to be pregnant without a choice when you've been raped.
Absolutely.
How do you talk about that when you're talking about a gray area?
Yeah. Well, listen, to be transparent, and I share it when I do my talks and workshops, I've been molested, right? As a kid by a teenager who was, babysitting. So I understand, that life, that world, it happened. And it's so unfortunate. And like I said, I understand there are extenuating circumstances where, sometimes people, that does happen to women. And they feel like that is the only choice. And if they feel that's the only choice, yes, they should have the right to do what they want to do, right? And not have the government completely step in and say, no, you can't do it because it's illegal. Because then that opens up a whole nother can of worms. So I do understand that part. But then I do understand the flip side, like I said, how God knew us before we were in the womb. So although there are tons of people who were, brought forth out of rape, right? Even back to the plantation days, they were brought forth out of rape, but it doesn't mean that that child is not of value. That child cannot be, a contributing member to society.
But isn't the point that these laws are forcing people to have, like, if someone chooses to have a child, no one's saying that a child that was born from that, like, no one's saying that, right? No one on the other side is saying these children are bad, right, when they're born.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Is there a gray area in forcing a woman who's been molested to have a child, which is what these laws can do?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So that's the part where I still say I don't think the law should truly be able to do that. But like I said, in according to God, does God say it's okay, right? So the way personally I'm trying to live my life, is nowadays especially is still different than how I lived my life in the days of my youth, right? So I understand about that whole journey and the whole process of how people feel that the government shouldn't tell them I can or I can't, and why should you have to be pregnant with that baby, and it's by your dad because he raped you, or your stepfather, or your uncle, or even your brother for that matter. Right. I mean, yeah, that is tragic. My heart goes out to women who've had to experience that. That's horrific, but I do understand on the other hand, there are women who similar situations have happened to, and they chose to keep that child, and not saying the child is bad by no means, but they still were able to bring forth life and still do their best to try to recover and make the best out of it without taking a life. So that's all I'm saying with that.
And so maybe, right, like part of this discussion and part of the, because I guess that's why maybe these discussions are important, because I am so far the opposite of where you are, right? Okay. Like I see it as a black and white issue. I see it as a choice issue. I see it as violence against women. Right. Like, as in, it is a forced choice.
Yeah.
But I don't understand your side, right? Because I do think that there is a difference between what you do morally and what you believe morally. Like, we had two pastors on the show in the last hour, and both of them were like, this decision is a travesty. This is horrible. But both of them are pro-life. Like, so we have two pro-life pastors, but dedicated their lives to the study of God and the preaching of the word and their theology. And I asked them a question about their theology, but their theology is different than their, like, there's a separation of church and state, right? Yeah. There's a separation between, like, the reason why it seems like overturning Roe v. Wade is categorically wrong, like, it is nothing good about it, is because I value freedom, right? And I value freedom,
which is at the heart of Black liberation theology, in
right?
All of its variations,
right? Like their Jesus ain't my Jesus. I consider myself very religious, but I think my theology is very Black. My God is Black.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And in that, it's that there is a way of thinking, there's a way of understanding spirituality and religion that would preclude things that white supremacists who burn crosses think is good, right? Like when James Cone is trying to deal with all of these religious people who use the Bible and use Jesus to violate civil rights, he really had to think through how we embrace Christianity and how our embrace of Christianity has to be fundamentally different than a white aesthetic based on who we are, right? Like, so I love my dad introduced me to, like, Black liberation theology without even telling me it was Black liberation theology. It was just a Black man knowing that his understanding of God and Jesus was fundamentally different than the people he grew up with, and the people in the nation who thumped the Bible and we came to some conclusions that were very ungodlike, right? Like, and so I think that the use of the state as force and violence, right? Like when something is a law, it's violent. With a lot, like if you violate the law, you would have your life, liberty, or property taken away. So I think that the question isn't whether or not you personally feel abortion should be legal or not, but should violence be done on those who think differently than you? I think ultimately that is the question, and why there's no gray line for me.
Yeah. So I get that part, but the other hand, when we are having abortions as women, right, is that violence against a child, right? So, and especially like I believe in my God is Black as well, right? So I've yet to see, and I could have missed something, but I've yet, and no matter what anyone says, I respect everybody's, opinions and religious, views. However, I have yet to read ever in my entire life or any other, religion that it is okay. Like if God puts something in our womb, where does he tell us that it's okay to kill a child, a fetus, whatever you want to call it? Once he puts life there, for whatever way it gets there, I've yet to have a pastor or anyone tell me where God condones it and says, yes, this is okay for you to do.
But why is it that why and the question, right, is why should the state back a particular vision of religion? Because that's not, my God is Black, and it doesn't talk about throwing Black women in jail who are raped because they want to get an abortion. My God wouldn't do that, right? Yeah. Like my Black Jesus would not do that, right? Absolutely. So if your Jesus would allow that, right? If some iteration of your Jesus would allow that, why does your iteration of Jesus get to trump mine?
Yeah, and I said, I word Trump.
Didn't you?
Exactly. No, and it shouldn't trump yours. But who is the ultimate one that trumps everything? In my belief, in my opinion, right? We know that God, trumps all. So is it that we just, follow? And that's why also I try to stay away from the news and television, all the other crazy stuff that's going on, because I know what I believe in, and I know how I try to live my life as a better, woman and inspire others, right? So I would never turn my nose down at someone because they made a particular choice, nor do I necessarily feel that, the government should tell you exactly how to govern your body. I just always go back to, you need to govern your own body better. Now, when you look at the whole number of abortions, there's a smaller percentage of people that were actually raped and had those type of traumas that actually have them. Now let's talk and say if that's maybe, 10%. They still have a right to make, that decision, obviously, but there are a whole bunch that are just, out there making, poor choices and end up pregnant and just use it as a form of contraception. And I don't see any.
But that's where the privacy part becomes so important, because you are outside judging people. You have no idea what their trauma is. Like, even if they tell you, even if they say it outside, like even if they say, this is why I have an abortion, you have no idea what was going on in their head, but yet you judge them, right?
Absolutely.
So
I won't judge them. Like, I'm not going to judge them. I don't have a heaven or the hell to put anybody in. Like, it's not, it is not my choice, my desire to ever condemn anybody for any decision they make. That's just the decision they have chosen to make.
But isn't saying that there's a gray area allowing the condemnation of individuals? Like, you can't be illegal and not be condemned. If something's illegal, if the force of law is being used on people, you are judging and condemning, right? Like, if there is a gray area, you think that there is a gray area where certain people should be condemned.
I don't think people should be condemned, right? I don't think people should be condemned, but I know there's the laws of God's laws, and then you have laws of the land, right? So I'm more concerned with God's laws and the laws of the land. Like, it is what it is. So I don't even really take a deep dive, into all of that stuff. But like I said, it's still, kind of like a gray area, because I still, my pivotal point in my life is to work harder to follow God's laws. And there is no law that I've ever seen under God's laws that gives you any reason that it's okay, but that's just, what works, that works for me.
But the conversation is about Roe v. Wade, not your personal beliefs, right? Like, your personal beliefs are fine. I don't care. I mean, it's great, right? We all have our beliefs, but the conversation was Roe v. Wade, and your opinion on Roe v. Wade. And you said there's a gray area. So if there's a gray area, that means that there's an area where the condemnation of individuals is okay. I mean, I don't know how it can be another way, right? Like when you talk about God's laws, we agree. When you talk about man's laws, that's when we disagree.
But Jonathan, are you asking like Donna's opinion or Jack's opinion or
about Roe v. Wade, right? Like
I got you about Roe v. Wade, but are you saying, because you keep saying condemnation, and I keep hearing Jack saying
that's what illegal is, right? Illegal is legal condemnation. But you go to jail, you get sued, like you lose your life, liberty, property, right? Like condemnation, you can't get any more condemned than being illegal. That's what I'm saying.
But I think we both are saying we don't judge people. We don't judge people, you know.
So then how is there a gray area, right? If there is a gray area, that means that there's certain levels in which Roe v. Wade good. Like you can't have it both ways. To me, it's black and white. You should never be able to force your religious will on someone else. You're like, there's a gray area. What is that gray area?
I would say, okay, so when I look at, like I said, the data, and say when I look at scripture, right? So if they do impose, the law where women can't do it, okay? So for the women that are going out having because most of the women who actually end up having abortions, statistics show that it's not their first time. Like they're on their second, third, fourth, fifth one, right? So now if they can't do it as easily in the state of New Jersey, for instance, perhaps that's actually helping you to make some better choices, to not just jump out and go and sleep around with anyone in that situation. Like I said, it's a whole nother ball game. I understand when people are molested and have been raped and all that kind of stuff. I get it, but that's not that common compared to the larger group of the population that have just, they were just, promiscuous or just in a monogamous relationship and got pregnant and realized, you know what, I'm about to get a promotion. Like, this is not the time. My career comes first. Like, I can't do this right now, or I don't want to be with this man anymore, or just whatever the factors are, So when I look at this,
I will say, Jax, that given that situation, that the career, it's not the time, but when the situation arises, I think we adapt to the situation. And that's what I think. I think that oftentimes, like, this was supposed to be a year 5 plan, but here it is, year 3. Okay, we're gonna move some things around and we're gonna make it happen. That's all.
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. And I think that's where the accountability piece comes in, because even if we do, go forward and have abortions, what then can then happen to our bodies? Now, we do it at 20 years old. Now we're, 25s, 30s, 40s or whatever, and potentially finally settle down and get married and want to have a baby. But now your body is so riddled and damaged inside because the law allowed you to just do whatever you wanted to do and have 25 abortions, throughout your life before you met your husband. And now perhaps you can't have an abortion. You know what I mean? So like I said, that's kind of the gray area.
So here's the thing, right? Like, everything both of you said, please explain why that's not judging, right? Like you have assumed, right, that, like you're saying, the data, these women are having it for these reasons, but the reason why it's a privacy issue is that you don't know why women are having abortions. Like some women who don't tell their husbands why they're having abortions, right? You're assuming that and also judging them for being inappropriate for having them, and saying it's okay if the law threatens to and punishes you because it might be better for you in the long run. Like, you are judging and you are hurting because law is violence. As in, when you say something is illegal, that means your life, liberty, property can be taken away. Like, is that something you accept?
Are abortions violent?
That's not answering a question, right? I say that when a woman chooses to do that to herself, that is not. That is called choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is my opinion on that. Like, definitionally, if she's like, I need to do this for my sanity, right? Yeah. I need to do this. I think forcing her to do other by state law that will jail her, take away her money, allow her to be sued, right? Yeah. That's real violence. If you're talking about somebody and themselves, I call that freedom.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's fine. That's fine.
But I mean, in terms of just the point of, are you okay with the violence that happens in terms of taking away someone's life, liberty, property, right? Or in this case, in these abortion laws, it would be liberty. They could be jailed or sued. They could lose property because of it, depending on the state, depending on the laws. Are you okay with
I'm not okay with that, nor am I okay with, like I said, the multiple abortions just as a form of contraception and women continuing to have that. I'm not judging them. I'm speaking off of experience and women that I know that are, grown, mature women, successful, pillars, in the community. Some of them successful in corporate and in different areas, and just, regular sisters that, I come across in the community that are so free, with it. So I don't judge them at all. I don't judge them. I don't have anywhere to put them to, to judge them, good or bad. Like, I'm not concerned with judging them. I just know, that I have not read, if I'm following, my, path, and I see that, I don't see anything in my path that says, okay, this is okay. I'm doing my best as a grown woman to, just walk a different path and to enlighten, us of our decisions. So I don't see, and that's what I say, what the gray area comes in. I feel for that fetus, that is being ripped into a million pieces, or, dead by the time you take the, plan B. So you're not, start to develop, a child greater. But then I also don't find it fair on the other end that you're, forced either. You know what I mean? So it's violence on both ends. So if I'm choosing the state and the, the spirituality part, I'm rocking with the spirituality part. Whatever the state does, in that capacity, they do. But I know who will judge me in the end for my decisions, and who will judge me in the end for my decisions is not the state. So
let me ask you a different question.
Yes.
How do, I mean, I'm just looking at this, and this is, I hate to use the word militarily, but from a casualty standpoint, how do you, based on our history as Black folks in the Western Hemisphere, brought here against our will and under the most savage conditions, right, under the principles of white supremacy, how do you think this decision is going to affect the well-being of women without this choice now?
I mean, like I've said, I think in a way how it will affect, the well-being of the women without that choice. And like I said, it still doesn't sit well with me, really, because I still think it is harsh, right? To not be able to have that option, so I'm not saying, yes, it's wonderful. Don't like, so I understand that side. But the other side, how can it affect women? If I'm a 15-year-old girl and now I become a 30-year-old woman and I made it unscathed, not pregnant, no abortion, that's a good thing. Even in the sight of God, that's a good thing that I did not murder something that was in my body because I wasn't prepared. I was irresponsible in certain situations and did not protect myself or abstain or whatever you need to do to not end up in that situation. Like I said, the rape and all that stuff, that's a whole different ballgame. But the majority of the women that have them, that's not the case, right? So it also preserves us so that, our women, like, even like I said, when you look back into slavery, look how many of those women were raped by the slave master and brought forth some geniuses, right? Now, had they had that opportunity back then, the world and all the Black excellence in some ways might not be what it is today, because of the mothers had that option to say, let me just go ahead and, you're not really developing. You don't even have a heartbeat yet. I'm just going to, get rid of you. Right. So we can still bring forth excellence, bring forth, humanity. And it's still what God allowed that to happen. You can have a woman raped 1,000 times, but if it is not meant for that child to flourish in that mother's womb, it doesn't matter. The rape matters, obviously, which is a horrific thing, but God ordained for that child to be in that womb, no matter what the situation is.
Right.
Because you have couples that are married for years that can never get pregnant, right? Or they've never gotten pregnant thus far. So when God is ready to put something in our womb and to bring forth life, he will put it there and we bring forth life. That's right.
And no matter what the situation it came out of, and for everybody on the show, I love the arts, and the show The Shy is dealing with that last season that a young woman was raped, and the choices were put before her. You can do A, B, C, or D. And after much thought, and one of her decisions was to carry it full term, and then put it on and let the baby be adopted. But as the baby began to grow inside of her and the relationship began to come forth, she decided to keep her baby. So I just think that I don't know. I just think that that the situation Roe v. versus Wade, I agree. I think overturning it was not necessary. It was something that we had dealt with. It should have just stayed on the shelf. But I think that there are other issues we need to deal with, that once that baby is outside of the womb, the issues that we hadn't dealt with, when that mom who has decided to step up in the hardest of situations and decided to keep that baby, how do we help her thrive? We haven't dealt with that yet. We want to keep going back to, this is God's will. The baby is here. The mother should have the baby and all that. Okay. So if you believe that, how do we, God said we should also feed the, feed the hungry and clothe the homeless. But we haven't gotten that far yet. We're still stuck on, she got to have a baby, So I just think there's a lot more to be dealt with.
Yeah. And I mean, imagine our community overall, if even if it was for a temporary time, if our people knew that there's certain things you cannot do because this is the outcome or this is the penalty or whatever you want to call it, certain how we would move would be different. Right? Women would think twice sometimes about, sleeping with this one. And then, you're sleeping with this one at 8 o'clock in the morning, but by midnight, you're, over here sleeping with the next one. Like, we're older, but it happens. It happens with young ones. It happens with old ones. It happens just across the board. And it's running rampant, in our community. So that's why we really have to take a step back. And I guarantee you, if something like that were enforced, although, like I said, I don't agree 110% whatsoever. However, when we really look at it holistically, how could that change the dynamics in our community? Would people still move the same way if they knew, oh, shoot, I don't have this option now? Because right now it's an option. And that's fine that it's an option, but it causes people to act more recklessly. But if there were something in place to not make it so free to do, it just makes it even worse. Our women would make better decisions. Our men, perhaps would make some better decisions. But in the absence of consequences, it's just chaos.
But you do see how everything you're saying is actually judging people. And
no, it's what I see in the community. It's what I'm not saying you're bad, you're wrong.
And evaluate, right? Like I don't know how you can get out of, like, definitionally, a judge, you are evaluating them. You were saying that evaluation is bad. Like, like you might not say, like, I'm just like, there seems to be a dissonance, a contradiction of everything that you said, which was women are promiscuous. That's a judgment. They need to take better care of their bodies. That's a judgment. If they had someone like the law tell them what to do, they make better decisions. That's a judgment, right? Like, you're making a series of judgments, and yet you're saying you're not judging. So help me.
Those statements that I'm making, those statements that I'm making, that is what, as you guys are in the community as well, right? I talk to a lot of people. I talk to people constantly, just like you guys do. And we have some of these conversations. I do a lot of work with teenagers as well. And I hear what's going on, right? So I'm not judging them. I'm stating what I see, what I hear, what are facts. I'm discussing what the parents talk about, right? What their kids are going through, what some of the other women.
But when you say good and bad, why isn't, like, if facts are facts, but then we take our opinion about those facts. Those are judgments. You talk about facts, but then you give your opinion about those facts. Why isn't that a judgment?
It's still a truth. And when I'm asked, what do you think about this? Naturally, I will bring forth my opinion, right? So, like I said, in seeing clearly what's happening in our community, and I think that's part of the problem, because we're not being accountable. So I think part of this conversation is trying to take the weight off of people, right? So we need to be, it's like there's accountability. We need to say, sister, like what you're doing, sleeping with 25 guys this week, and not all women. I'm just saying just across the board, right? Because if you look at the STD rate, the pregnancy rate, the abortion rate, all that stuff, the numbers are high, you know, so obviously somebody's doing something.
But why is it that they need, like, aren't you assuming that you are so objectively right that you can tell others what to do, that you can judge others and use the state to force them to do what you think is right based on those facts, based on your religion? Like, I'm hearing what you're saying, but I'm saying, do you like it just seems like you are actually making judgments, but don't admit that you're making judgments.
I'm just speaking the reality of what I see in my community and the people that I work with, you know, and so the state, they're going to do what the state does. They're going to make the decisions that they make, right? But like I said, for me, it's laws of the land and God's laws. So for me personally, I'm working on following God's laws. And guess what? When we try to work better at following God's laws, certain things in our lives definitely would be different. We all want to, for the most part, want to try to strive to do better and be better and make better decisions, right? So there are guidelines, and it's not acceptable. I mean, look how our community.
But I think the difference between me and you is I don't trust the state to help me make better decisions, right? I think I can make better. I think women can make better decisions without having white men who run the state or white women who run the state tell them you need to make decisions.
But exactly, you're saying exactly what I'm saying. That goes to accountability. You're saying women can make better decisions.
No. I'm saying I trust those women who you don't trust. The women you don't trust, I trust them more than I do the Supreme Court, more than Clarence Thomas. Though every woman you could talk to,
I don't trust Clarence Thomas.
Every woman, every hoe you talked about, right? Every jumping from bed to bed, I trust their decisions 100 times more than Clarence Thomas. Who voted for him.
But Jonathan, can
every day, all day.
Absolutely, and I'm not saying it's Clarence Thomas or the Supreme Court's decision. I'm not saying that.
But Jonathan, can't we have our own moral values, but we can also respect the decisions of others? Like, morally, if I had to choose, I would choose this way. But for somebody else, that doesn't mean if I disagree with their choice that I'm not judging them. I just disagree.
Here's the thing. I think that you disagreeing with their choice to the extent that you think the state should regulate them is a judgment, because the state is judging them, and you're like, that could be okay. Like, if I'm not judging you, that means you do you, I do me, right? Like, you do you, I do me. I disagree with you, but you do you, I do me. If you're judging them, you're like, well, you know, the state's not letting you do it. Well, you probably shouldn't. That's judgment. And
that's not what I'm. Yeah, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that I think Roe versus Wade is something that I don't even understand why we're talking about it on June 24th, 2022. It's done. It's over with. It's been written into law. Why was it necessary?
But it has dangerous implications too. That's why we're talking about it.
Right.
No, I got
it
that.
has to do with undermining privacy.
No, I got that, but I'm saying, why is the government having this conversation when they didn't further the conversation to say, okay, now, that if they're going to have the baby, how do we help them thrive? That's what I need. Why is the conversation is they just have to have the baby and not furthering the conversation about helping them thrive? That's what, that's where I would go.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And that's why I do a lot of the work that I do to empower and inspire and help our families and provide them with resources to build up our community. So even if you think about a needs assessment or you think about trying to go into urban areas to really help, what are the needs of our people, right? we have to look at the situations, we have to look at the data, we have to have conversations and see what's really going on to figure out how we can best serve them and how best we can help them. So it doesn't mean just because you've come up with some, information on these are the things that they need or these are the things that they're doing and we need to help put resources here. If you consider that being a judgment, it's a judgment. But in terms of trying to build and empower our community, like we see what's going on. We live here in the city every day. We see our young boys who are and our young girls who are in gangs. We see the young girls who you can speak to the police and they'll tell you how a lot of these young girls are actually setting up these young boys, right? So setting them up to, sometimes get murdered or to get robbed. It's so many different things going on. So we do have to look at the situation and evaluate what's going on to find out how best we can help our community. And for me, that's all I want to do is how can I best help my community? And if I see, this little young man right here is not getting what he needs because his dad has 10 other baby mamas, or maybe because his mom has 10 other baby daddies or whatever. So this young man is not getting what he needs. Okay, sis, I have to look at you. You have to look at yourself and say, what could I do better? And that's just facts. Like, what can you do better? Now, if you are on your 10th baby dad and you're only 25 years old, wouldn't you think that there's some sort of a disconnect going on? So we need to help that sister. So I'm not judging that sister.
Well, no. I think even in the examples, right? Like like that sounds a lot like it sounds, and I'm glad we're having this conversation, but it sounds like the 80s when Ronald Reagan was talking about welfare queens, right? Like
listen,
I know that is not the majority of Black women, right?
No, I'm not speaking for the majority at all, but I still see a lot of the plight that we have in our community. Of course, I know this, other women who have married one husband, one or two kids, they have the nice house. Yes, I know all that. Like, I get those women as well, right? But I also get the other women who are struggling that I want to help, that I connect with, that my spirit resonates with, that are forgotten many times, right? So I'm not just pulling cliche-ish judgmental things out of the air. I'm speaking, I would never give you names because of confidentiality, but I have names to every situation I'm talking about. I have names and references and people that I'm referring to, that I hold dear, that I help to try to build. So it's not just some, lady on here talking down about our community, because I'm in the community. I'm in the trenches in our community. And I see what some of the problems are. And from my understanding, that's part of what the Black political convention is going to be about, trying to find a resolve and solution to really help build our community. So we have to look at the hard truths in our community and not just sugarcoat it. So I
know that we are getting ready to go on to the next segment, to our hip hop segment. And I hear what you're saying. I know that we've had a very unexpected but enlightening conversation, right? Like,
like I said, I'm not trying to support like Clarence Thomas or the Supreme Court and all that stuff. I'm saying I understand. Okay, he doesn't.
Well, I'll beat the hell out of his ass. I just want to whoop his ass.
Okay, so with me, I'm like, with the answers you gave, I know that you're not 100% supporting it, but you see a bright lining that I do not see, right? Like, you see a silver lining that I'm like, there's no silver lining.
Can we see no Clarence Thomas for 5 minutes?
Right.
Let me stop.
But it's but yeah, I think that so it is good that we had you on, because normally, like, when you have conversations with people who have different views that are vastly different, that is good. That is why we had these like long conversations. We could hear everybody's argument, what they feel, and I think that that's important, right?
Yes.
Different people who are on different sides of an issue, even if there are like we are on different sides of the issue, even if it is a little more nuanced than others. It was definitely a different sides of the issue. But I think these conversations are important. But we're getting ready to move on to the next segment of what we do, and that is our DJ Rhino in the state of hip hop. But this week, DJ Rhino is not on, and we're congratulating DJ Rhino on a graduation in the family of a wonderful little DJ. So I'm giving the best DJ in the universe, DJ Rhino, right? DJ Rhino is by far the best DJ in the entire universe, and that is DJ Rhino. And we also have our ambassador of hip hop on for this segment. And I call him Newark's ambassador for hip hop, right? Because that's what he actually is, right?
And let's shout out, and that's
I'll take that.
But that's DJ Rhino's princess. She graduated from school, correct? His princess.
That's what he was talking about.
Congratulations.
Let's give her a big shout out as she moves on, as she's moving, as they say, she's moving up. So we wish her, she's a DJ in her own right, and she's doing her own thing. So congratulations to his princess.
Let me just do one thing before we start the segment. I just wanted to apologize that we weren't able to have Baba Gumbs on, but I want and Donna and Jack, I want y'all both to appreciate this. He is in a film that is lifting up, right? Jessica. Oh my God, daughter, what's going on, Lafayette? Right?
Hey, Baba, Lafayette.
That this film, there's a film that's happening at Sister's Place tomorrow that is documenting the emergence of the Black is Beautiful movement that was launched by an organization called AJAZ, that was founded by Alumbe Brath and his brother Kamal Brathwaite. It's a powerful film and a powerful moment, a liberating moment, right? And so before we talk about the Black Arts Movement, the Black is Beautiful movement coming straight out of Harlem by young Garveyites, right? It's something that I want folks to appreciate, and I want to figure out how to get them back on. But it's a powerful film that I want folks to check out.
We actually have to have them back on. They were starting like the whole Black and Beautiful
I know folks. A lot of folks are just jumping in because they wanted to. They missed that discussion. I want to just update them appropriately on that.
And I think it's great because it's like the last segment was supposed to be about having him on and having a real conversation about Black aesthetics, Black is Beautiful movement that started in that really had his roots. Maybe a lot of roots before that, but that Black.
I'm Black and I'm proud.
Yeah, all that,
this is
right?
before that. Black and I'm proud is 68. This is before that. That's why.
So this is 1962. You're talking about the precursor to that, and we were going to have him on tonight. So yes, a shout out to Mr. Gumbs, and we will definitely have to have you back on because we can learn a lot from the people who came before, especially like 60 years ago, and how radical it was to say Black is beautiful, right? How radical it was to embrace.
They set Harlem on fire. Right? Yes, they did.
That is Black. So. We are getting ready to go on to this segment, which is related to the other segment as well in terms of just aesthetics and Black aesthetics and hip hop and having these conversations about it. And I am really honored to have the guests we have on today. Like DJ Rhino, unfortunately can't be here tonight, but fortunately it's a great celebration and a great shout out that we gave before. But brief introductions for it. What I always want to have are intergenerational conversations about hip hop, right? Because I think that just as we have Black is Beautiful movements, just as we have an understanding of aesthetics and what that means, like just as in the last segment, we talked about concepts of Black theology, right? Like my God is Black, my Jesus is Black, and what that means. Like, and I know, Jessica, I saw you like, yeah, right? Because like you all into religion and Blackness on multiple levels of Christianity and Europe.
And I'm sorry, I missed that segment.
Absolutely, right? So, but I'm absolutely honored to have all of you on. We have Hakeem Green, who's I call him Newark's ambassador to hip hop, right? You see him hanging out with KRS-One just because, right? And doing songs with KRS-One just because, and dropping albums like every few years just because, right?
And leading
movements about understanding.
They're putting stuff out. That's right.
Tourism just because. That's Hakeem Green. And Hakeem Green, thank you for. I'm always honored to have you on, brother. Like, just.
Thank you so much, John. It's an honor and pleasure to be here. My people.
We also have somebody who I need to get to know better, right? Because someone who is very dynamic, funny, and a leader of activist, has her own podcast, and that is Jessica Kinetic Renee, right?
You got your own show. You ain't tell nobody what's up with that, girl.
I have posted about it, but we're very full disclaimer, we're very, very inconsistent with it. So, we're not really in a good rhythm. It's hosted by myself and my uncle. He's actually my same age, named Shine. He's very deep into both international development work, especially with different NGOs and on the continent of Africa. And he's also had a long history doing stuff in music, A&R, management, and things like that with local hip hop artists. So he comes from that perspective, and we talk. The podcast is entitled "The Blackocracy." So basically, we talk about the different things that we notice culturally, concepts we notice culturally, and or phenomenon that we might see unfolding, on the everyday. But our spin on it is that, giving a kind of perspective as to what that means within our context, like the things we need to be aware of and look out for and what have you. So that's really what the Blackocracy is for. It's on all of the streaming services. You could just look up the Blackocracy podcast. And that's us.
All right. Well, thank you. Again, it's great to have you on. And I followed a lot of stuff that you say. I think you are hilarious, thoughtful, and insightful. And it's a pleasure to it's a pleasure to just read stuff you write. Like, I just be real. Like, it's a like you make me smile, you make me think. So you are very much appreciated, right?
Thank you. That's peace.
And next we have somebody who just jumped up. Goke, what's up, man? Right? We have someone who I've known for years, and he is a young man who is an artist. Goke, he's put out some stuff recently. We've had tons of conversations over the years. Full disclosure, I'm a debate coach at Science Park. He is one of my former debaters in one of the legendary rounds of debates. Probably one of the most significant debate tournaments that I've ever coached was at Berkeley. There were over like 360 something people from across the country who were there. We flew out to California, and we came in first, second, and third. And in Lincoln Douglas debate, Goke was one of the what came in third, right? Like, it came in, made it to semis, and didn't lose, right? He just our other teammate was first. Our other two teammates were first and second. So he was always like, "Hey, I didn't even lose." But what makes it real significant is that the last round he debated, he'd been working on this for about 2 weeks. Everything he was arguing about reparations. So he was taking the Ta-Nehisi Coates article on reparations, and he did it all in verse. He had
you talked about him. All right.
All the entire debate, right? He answered arguments. He had all quoting the story, right? All of it, all in verse. Some prepared, some freestyle, right? Like, all of it. Beat this kid from California, was from a very, very, very prestigious school. Beat this
I hope
kid
you beat his behind, son.
Did
you beat his behind?
He was mad. He was like,
beat his behind. Beat his behind.
He was just rapping. He was just rapping.
Ancestors want you to be rapping. Rules unite.
It was so angry.
So that was at a Goke. We had some fun moments. Never had a debater sweat in a debate round like him when he was like, that whole thing. I think when that video came out, "You're gonna get this work."
Oh yeah,
at a Goke, that he was at a Goke. I mean, Goke was inspired by that to give people that work when he needed to give people that work. Man, I thought he was sweating so badly after he came out. I was like, "Whoa, what's going on?" It was like, "And that work." It was hilarious.
And you were
wait. Documented.
I quickly need to cut in what he fails to mention from that story is that he also inspired one of the greatest speeches out of me by giving one of the best pep talk before the speech. Honestly, this has to top any pep talk you see in any type of he really got me riled up before the round to go in and do what I needed to do. So shout out to y'all for just being a great coach in that manner.
Praise the teacher.
You inspired that greatness that day.
Well, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it, man.
So how was that documented? That sounds incredible. Jonathan, you've been telling us the story for a while.
It actually, it was not actually documented.
Oh, my God.
I mean, we may have recorded some of the rounds, but I don't think we documented the whole thing.
Yeah.
But it was a really good tournament too, because even though we also took first, second, and third, Like we also had another person too who cleared and also assisted. It was also just a breakthrough moment for the team to just really see like, hey, we could come out here from Newark, travel across the country,
That's right.
and
That's
literally
right, son.
just take on people who,
That's right.
you know, like by any means have more resources and, you know, more coaching, more time even than us. But, you know, we also put in very long hours, like PhD level. So it was a great experience.
So
Absolutely.
let's get to the point of the conversation, right? Let's
Yeah.
all of you, right. Let's talk about hip hop, and let's talk about hip hop, especially with some of the stuff that you're doing. And let's start it off with Drake, right? Like there have been some controversies about Drake, and I don't know. Jessica, do you want to start this off? Like you had some stuff to say. And then we can get into some other issues in terms of this intergenerational conversation about like, and maybe this could lead off into what is hip hop? What's going on? Is it good? Is it bad? What can the generations learn from each other?
I guess I can share a thought. First and foremost, I do want to give honor and respect to Goke, because any MC who can be inspired by Loaded Lux, I'm automatically a fan. But so to share my thoughts, the reason why John asked me to step on the show tonight was because I had a pretty passionate take, if you want to say, on my Facebook page. And honestly, it wasn't exactly about Drake himself. It was with regard to everyone's backlash or miscategorization of the style of music he was going for in this latest project. Honestly, never mind. What people feel about Drake personally, I couldn't care less. And just to be transparent, I am a fan of his music, not a fan enough to defend him. In my personal opinion, he's absolutely a culture vulture. He definitely, in his own way, pops across the country, across the world, really, and he takes the pockets of native Black sounds and he recreates them and he makes new albums and songs from them. We all know that he does that. He's done that for years. It's his thing. My issue that I took was that obviously, very obviously, this album is almost completely house music, right? Or at least that's the sound that it's approaching. And seeing as how house music was invented by Black folks in the United States, to be specific, folks argue folks argue exactly where. I rep Newark all day, every day, in every conversation. I'll give credit to Chicago. However, in that, you know, being born and raised in Newark, I was raised in West Ward and South Ward. House music is life to me, as much as it is hip hop. And in the same exact communities where hip hop really grew and really originated, that's exactly where house music came from. And it's used for much of a similar purpose. Or even if I was to say that, maybe if hip hop can give voice to the passion and struggle of our people and youth culture, then I would say that house music is the spirit and soul. That is our joy, right? House music in those same very rough neighborhoods and areas, to me, is an expression of the joy and the Blackness and Africanness within us. That is how we release that pressure out as joy. And all of the takes I was seeing, most of them, not all, but most of the takes I was seeing initially, you know, folks giving backlash and giving criticism, they were saying the most ignorant things like, oh, he's appealing to his white audience. He's appealing to his overseas audience, his international audience. This is white music, so on and so. And that was my problem, because Black culture, especially in the United States, is old enough, rich enough, and beautiful enough, and unique enough in enough pockets. And house music at this point being one of the oldest music forms we have, especially with regard to the modern era right now, all of those takes to me were just borderline insulting. Like, you know, if I was to use a word, insulting. It passed by ignorant. Also because this was not his first attempt at doing this type of music.
Exactly.
Neither was it any mainstream artist for that matter within the past 10, 20 years. Kanye beats folks over the head with this type of music. And he's originally from Chicago and grew his career in Newark. So how could people be that ignorant? I don't buy it. So that was, you know, and of course I get a little passionate about it. Because like I said, where I come from, house is life. And house is joy. House is, you know, there isn't other, there's not a more adequate way I can describe how you feel when that music comes on and you connect to it, right? And mostly, I guess, only people from places like where I'm from would know that. But nevertheless, I don't really buy it when people play ignorant. Like, you've heard of it before.
But really, but what I was going to say is that, Jessica, you have a deep cultural history that goes deep on multiple levels, right? Like, you read a lot, you listen to a lot, you have a very eclectic taste, or at least that's what it appears, right? Based on the limited conversations we've had, based on stuff that you know put out there, there's a depth that's there. Goke, I want to bring you
in background.
right. And Goke, I want to bring you in on this as
Hold on
probably
one second. We gonna leave Baltimore out of the house music conversation? That's what we doing?
Wow.
No.
I'm from Jersey.
I didn't. No, because if you're going to do that, then I actually need to list many places. I need to.
I was just saying I didn't want to get in my feelings. I didn't want to get in my feelings. I didn't want to.
You brought smoke. Don't do that.
Just making sure we. Just making sure.
No, I didn't exclude anyone. I only named two specifically, but I did not exclude. I just named two.
And don't get mad because she rep Newark.
Right. Don't do that. Don't do that.
That's right. Go find your mayor. All right. So, Goke. So, you know, as the youngest member on, and hey, welcome, Chris Randall. Welcome to the show.
I was going to say, because y'all finally can make mayor jokes. It's cool.
That's right. All right. So, Goke, man, as the youngest person here, Jessica brought out a lot of, talked about depth history in terms of Drake. What he does in terms of going to different places and bringing in different things. Just curious, how do you react to that Drake's album? And you could bring in some stuff about your own experiences too, and how you approach hip hop as an artist.
Yeah. So my take on Drake's album, to be honest, I mean, I didn't listen to all of it because a lot of it sounded repetitive. Obviously, I had to listen to the one with the feature with 21 Savage. So I listened to that one, and, you know, I bumped out a couple of times, and I mean, I could just see that. I feel like he, you know, like when I think about Drake as an artist right now, I feel like he really has done the pinnacle of everything he could have done in rap music, right? Like he has, he literally ran trap music, right, for that decade. When trap was out, that was literally Drake eras. And then he also slid into like the R&B. He slid into the R&B lane too, like pretty well. Like even though a lot of it is ghostwritten, which I know people have like, you know, their take on, but at the same time, like I feel like Drake has also ghostwritten some really great songs that I've liked, right? Like Alicia Keys, or that song with Alicia Keys where he has like that small feature on the song. So I feel like overall Drake has just like really just killed it in the industry for like 10 years, even with the gangster rap rolling with like Lil Wayne and like Birdman crew, like originally coming up with them. So I feel like he has done everything he could do. And I also agree with a lot of what was said before. Like he does kind of like bite off of like every different, a lot of different styles. But I don't know. I also think like arguably some of that has some benefit, but not so much, because a Drake feature on like any song will like literally increase like the visibility of that type of music, like just grandly, which is like great exposure. But a lot of times that exposure doesn't stick as much. So, you know, it's like a give and take situation. So I think like with this album, he was just doing kind of what he's always done, which is just like branch out into a new territory in the best way he knows how to. And I feel like even with my experience in music, like so far, like I've only dropped singles, haven't dropped any like body of work yet. But in all of my singles, like I always take a different approach to every single song that I've done. So I can appreciate like the ability to like, you know, just branch out of your territory and try something new. And just like to really try it too. I feel like that's really the test. You know, are you going to just like show up and like try, or are you just going to like really do it? And I feel like Drake has always been that artist where he's like, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to like really do it and embody what I think that means. But overall, like I haven't listened to the whole album, but just that one song I listened to, I think it was like a dope song. But I've never really liked house music as much. I've always been more of like Afro beats for dance music, or even just like church music, which is basically just Afro beats at my church. But yeah, so like I don't listen to that much dance music, but I appreciate like his ability to just branch out and do something different. And I could tell like he really did try. In all the songs that I listened to, I tell like he killed it. Like it sounded like a dope song. It didn't sound like Drake to me, but it did sound like a decent song to me. That's like it has replay value. And, yeah, nicely produced.
And our ambassador, our North ambassador for hip hop, what say you about Drake? Now I'm expecting it to be quite type judgmental, right? Like because you know there are times where you know I know the conversations we had about Pusha T or Jay-Z, you were like, nah. So I'm just curious. So ambassador of hip hop, minister of hip hop North, Hakeem Green, what say you?
And Haqq, you're looking 100% better. Glad to see you feeling better, sir.
Yes. Thank you.
Hell yeah.
So, hip means to know. It's a form of intelligence. Hip means to know. It's a form of intelligence. To be hip means to be update and relevant. Hop is a form of movement. You can't just observe a hop. You got to hop up and do it. Hip hop is intelligent movement. If Drake is moving the crowd, it's hip hop, I guess. Even though we're talking about house music and dance music. I haven't listened to any of it. I don't seek out Drake. I don't listen to Drake. I don't, I just don't have an opinion on Drake. I know he's, this generation's, he's the pinnacle of the game right now, of the industry, of the game. And I know he's, after Kanye, he's probably that guy. He influences so much. I love the fact that he's involved in the NBA and the presence that he has in Toronto with the Raptors. I love that. But I listen to Rock the Bells every day. I listen to my own YouTube playlist. I listen to the Groove channel. I listen to, if I'm gonna listen to house music, I'm not checking for Beyonce. I'm not checking for Drake, because it's just gonna give me an outsider's version of what I was raised on. So I'm just gonna go right to the source. Rest in peace, Patrick Adams, Black Ivory, Mainline. You know what I mean? I got a joint that I dropped called Jewelry with the going to see my baby bass line from the Fatback Band. I dropped that last year. I dropped a joint called Two Black Two. I dropped a joint called Two Black Two Song, a straight dance record with Ronald Burrell from the Burrell Brothers, released on New Grooves just last year. So house music I was raised on. As you say, where was house music created? Chicago gets the props thanks to Frankie Knuckles, who is from New York City, the Bronx, and a lot of the early house records he was playing in Chicago was actually coming from Jersey. There's a brother by the name of Shadrach Guy who told a story yesterday on his Facebook page about how him, another brother, and Larry Levan was in a group with Frankie Knuckles, and they was basically giving him the music to play out in Chicago. Now, house music was just music for us in the 70s. I'm 70s, born in 69. So barbecues, house parties when I could sneak in at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. It was just music that we now call house music. But it was just music to us, as I'm sure it was in Baltimore, Mr. Chris Randall. It was just the music that Black folks was vibing to in the Northeast Corridor. And he had all these early groups like Mainline and, just, big shout out to Moving Records, Abby over there, Moving Records on Central Avenue Stars. Just early. So to see like Drake and the Beyonce, like I definitely got to respect them for who they are as pop artists. but I know they're approaching what they do from a pop artist mentality, and that just misses me. That's not where I'm at. I'm still over here with the realness.
Wow.
Club Zanzibar, 1979. That's what I'm talking about. Come on, Tony Humphries later on. But y'all know what it is.
That's my generation stuff.
Shit.
So what we're talking about, right? Like, and that's why we wanted you on the show, Hakeem, because like you were like, no, I'm just naming folks right now. I'm naming folks who were in the day, who actually did the thing that y'all are talking about right now. So that's why I think a lot of these intergenerational conversations are very important. How do you see that? You can continue to talk about this and house music, but I just want to throw this in. How do you see, given that there's a certain history that is naturally in hip hop anyway, right? Like it's all about like tribute to past, present, to look to future, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're sampling records, when people are looking at styles, right? Like hip hop seems like it is always an amalgam of different things at different times to push like the limits of what we heard and what we will hear. How do you see the current generation of hip hop, like younger artists, the stuff that's coming out, not from the stuff that's people who are superstars, but the stuff that you hear coming up from below, and how it speaks to this?
May I hop in?
Of course.
I had a conversation the other day on Facebook about hip hop versus R&B, and I'm like, all right, first of all, hip hop is R&B.
Yeah. Why is there
Hip hop is another version of R&B, rhythm and blues, and blues being after gospel, being the foundation of Black music. Everything is really an extension of that. Rock and rolls is blues. Country western is bluegrass, blues. Jazz, another form of blues. Hip hop was blues, or rappers rapping about their experiences over sped up beats. The beats are kind of harder, but essentially still just rhythm and blues. It's R&B. And I just, when we make these divisions and these categories without really understanding that it's just a continuum.
That's right.
It's a continuum. Where you're the last poets, just the whole. I mean, they got a video of a gospel group back in like the 30s and the 40s. They were straight rhyming. It was rhymes, bars, rhyming about Jesus. So, is it this? Is it that? It's all Black music. It's all Black music. It's all rhythm and blues. Hip hop is rhythm and blues.
All right. So what is someone to jump in, and it could be anybody to jump in with that.
I'm kind of torn on the question of like the culture vulture thing. I'm a little torn on that because I think that without certain kinds of exposure, there's certain ideas and anything that we wouldn't know about. And I also think that I totally agree with Hakeem that given the continuum of Black cultural expression, and I think that timeline that he laid out, kind of starting with Negro spirituals and all of that and moving to where we are now, there's a part of all of that is sampled from different moments of the music. And so I wonder how we determine a culture vulture, and like, what is the line between I enjoyed this so I reproduce it, and I'm inherently close to the culture, because I mean, Drake is from Toronto, where they have a huge doing the Afrobeat stuff, where they have a huge Caribbean Afro presence, right? And
he's the nephew of Larry Graham from Graham Central Station.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's the nephew of Larry Graham.
Yeah, that's some serious.
Yeah, like he's serious folk. He's from the culture.
Yeah. So I mean, with that being said, it's kind of like, and again, I'm not a huge Drake fan. I'm not. But I do think that I agree with Goke about his relevance to the cultural expression, and he does come, in fact, from the culture, right? In very grassroots indigenous ways, right? So. I mean,
and he's not whack. He's not whack. He just ain't speaking to me.
Yeah, he's not talking. I'm not I'm not going to this Drake album, but it's not for me.
Mm-hmm.
Really. So I mean, I think there are moments where I opt out because I'm like, that's not really for me. I've known Goke a long time. He'll tell you that I don't, me and creativity, I'm not really that person. So that wasn't what I've ever brought to anyone's life. But I would say that given like my love of literature, I don't know if you could get an Iceberg Slim without James Baldwin or Richard Wright or whatever, and so or a Sister Soldier without a Zora Neale Hurston or a Toni Morrison, and all these people are influenced. So it's just it's always tough for me, like how we tease out who does what, and what's the difference between admiration and being a vulture. It's always interesting to me how we draw those lines. And I don't know, given who Drake is and where he's from, I don't know how he couldn't fall in love with Afrobeats music or how he couldn't fall in love with house music. I don't know how it would be possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah, one of the biggest, what was that, Caravana? One of the biggest Caribbean festivals is held right up in Canada. Yes.
Yeah. I think he's authentic with his love for the culture from the music side of it, let's say.
So you're not saying that's I always think of Degrassi, right? So maybe that's me. Like I think Drake, and I'm like Degrassi. So I most of the other stuff you're right. Like all the stuff you're saying, you're right, cool. But I just never. I guess because he never spoke to me, and it was just never the person I followed. That I was just like, oh, Degrassi, and a lot of people love him, and that's cool. But
I mean,
it's funny when I was driving in my car and I was listening to some of it. It took me back to like the 80s. I don't know if you guys remember that store Structure in the Livingston Mall. It took me back to like shopping in Structure as a little kid with my older cousins and brothers and stuff. It was just that kind of music. So I'm not, it just kind of like took me back. When I was talking to my daughter about it, actually asking what she thinks and what's the vibe on the street with the kids, my daughter was telling me even about the video. Right? Have you guys seen the video for the recent song?
I have not.
Gotcha. So the video is literally Drake getting married, and it's like 100, like he's in his suit or whatever, and it's like say 100 women in wedding gowns, and he has a box full of wedding bands, and each woman is coming up, they're doing like a little dapping each other up, their own private handshake, but then he gives each girl a ring to marry like 100 women, like in this long line. And then on the wedding cake, there's women, all different multitude of women around each tier of the wedding cake, like little statues of women. So I know for my 15-year-old daughter, she was like, "Mommy, what is going on?" Like she didn't really, she's not really feeling it, and neither are some of her friends because they felt like
womanizing. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. So for me, it's like, yeah, Hakeem. So for me, it's like, what is that teaching our community? I'm big on teaching my community and thinking about impact and stuff like that. And I know how our youth really look up to Drake and they really look up to his music. But then when I see images like that, what message is that truly sending to our children? And it leads back to the conversation we had earlier. So I think it's kind of slippery slope and a little dangerous, especially when children don't have the guidance in their home to kind of teach them, a little different.
I mean, I think as long as there are limits to like what you portray inside of your music, like it's just entertainment, and then to the same extent, like you might see a movie where like, there's action or violence in that movie. I feel like a child, while some might say that violence is bad for like, very, very young child to see, I would agree. But, once a child gets older, I feel like they'll be able to distinguish like fantasy from fiction, and they should be able to do the same inside of like music. I will say though, like this generation of music has very muddied the line between like reality and fiction between music, which is like, very scary thing, which was, I feel like, inevitable to happen with the way that music was just growing, especially with internet. But I mean, like at the same time, I don't know, I guess I'd like to hear some of, like the older generation takes on like, fantasy and fiction inside of like music and lyricism and what you guys think.
I would love to hop in because, it wasn't your generation that did it. It was our generation, my generation specifically, right? And there's this concept within the community, started in the late 80s, early 90s, but it became the litmus test for what got accepted and what didn't get accepted. And that is keeping it real, right? The whole idea of keeping it real. We couldn't, you couldn't get validated as an MC if you weren't really the guy that you claimed to be in your records, right? So now we're at a point where, you know, these kids are just, they're out to really do the things that they talk about in their records because that's the standard, and trying to prove your legitimacy on the street. So hopefully your record will win. And so I wouldn't put that on your generation. I definitely think it's our generation. And when you said that it's you know, it's just entertainment, it's never just entertainment, right?
Exactly.
That's true.
It's always politics involved. It's always about power and how the narrative leads power back to the folks who want control.
Absolutely.
So, you know, there used to be rules to the game at radio and TV, mass communications. And I'll talk about this all the time. The 1996 Telecommunications Act, which deregulated broadcast communications and opened the way for monopolization. You had the clear channels, the iHeart radios. They couldn't exist prior to 1996 because media conglomerates couldn't own but so many platforms in one region, one city. And then there were rules in terms of how many times an artist could play on the radio in a given hour, even if you couldn't play Drake and then you know, a Kanye song with Drake, and then no, there had to be room, there had to be space to give everybody an equitable shot at being heard, and the public airways belong to the public. So the profanity, the violence, the sexuality, a lot of that stuff was kept out because it was understood the effect that it has on the brains of youth, of young people who now can't avoid it. And we would only hope that people grow up to be old enough to discern real from fiction. Reality is, you know, it's a long conversation. We don't become mentally mature now until our 30s. They got us stuck on young boy mode through our teens, 20s, and sometimes 30s. You know, we dress like young boys, we talk like young boys. We want our music to relate to what the kids are doing. And the corporations will tell you straight up their target market is 12 and 13-year-old white girls.
Yep.
So we package the image of black people to, to serve 12 and 13-year-old white girls.
Absolutely.
I want to bring Jessica Renee back in just to talk about. Well, are you there?
She's there.
Yeah, I definitely want to bring you back in to talk about just your perspective on this concept of art, and because my opinion on it's very different. I think that there are lots of social issues that are going on. I think that, like in Japan, their entertainment is far more violent than ours. Yet they have different results because there are different social things in place. I think that my opinion may be different than everyone else's.
But they also have one of the highest suicide rates.
Yes, but that's not because of the entertainment. That's also because of social pressure at school, et cetera, right? The way their school system is structured actually puts that pressure on them, and that's been studied as well, right? Like it's not a correlation between violence and entertainment and suicide. It's parental pressure.
With the Asian community across the board, Japanese and Koreans, music promotes the idea of nihilism and suicide and destruction. Like there's a thing within their art that, although everything you're saying is dead on, those societal pressures, whatever, it gets the suicide part gets promoted in the music that they put out.
Absolutely.
And I know that's the case with Korea.
But I feel like there's local music that's like joy, you know, wouldn't they have an option?
They actually have big, thriving hip hop communities in those countries too, though. So I kind of struggle with that point of view.
Yeah, Jessica, can you elaborate on what? Because I know that you have a lot of background in, like, you're intellectually curious about lots of different cultures. You're intellectually curious about the layers inside of culture, and the conversation that very, very, a lot of people were like, C. Delars Tucker was right, but and I think that's part of the vibe, right? But talk to me, like talk to me about that.
Specifically, what about art, beloved? I'm sorry.
What
did you want me to comment on?
But to comment on the discussion about art and responsibility, and about how music has to have a message in order for it not to have negative effects on youth.
that's a very complicated notion, and I actually want to offer some pushback. Because to me, the same, let's call it violence, the same pain that is being or day-to-day that's being expressed in the violence in lyrics or what have you, even though to a very large degree nowadays it is more life imitating art, and maybe it's kind of a synergy back and forth at this point in the communities and in the streets. At one point that used to be the conversation, is it life imitating art imitating life, right? But the pushback that I offer is that the same place, the same social conditions and the same generational oppression and everything else that the people, our people, had to endure and to on a daily basis constantly, that is our overarching context. That same environment that created the pain that is released in the lyrics is precisely what fuels the actual violence that you see in the streets. It's not as if any young Black folks just up and for no good reason at all or no other type of influence just say, oh, we just gonna go be violent today. Like that's not that's not how it happens. So yeah, I would offer pushback that I would still call either all or most of it art. Of course, it's maybe on a piece by piece basis, and my opinion might differ when I see it or when I listen to it. But it is the expression of that youth culture and the expression of those particular people. There is something that they are telling you in that creation. So what the listener or what the reader or the person digesting it might consider art, depending, it might vary person to person. But if art is telling you something, if art is conveying or expressing something, it is the manifestation of whatever's inside the person or inside the culture, then I'm really hard pressed to dismiss any of it, because it's kind of one of those situations, like I think in the Bible it says somewhere, like, if what your eye is seeing offends you, then pluck it out. You know what I mean? Like, kind of beauty in the eye of the beholder type of thing. So I would be hard pressed to dismiss it.
Yeah, I don't think that the art is the cause of, right? And as artists, I think artists should be allowed to say anything and everything they want to say. With no judgment, with no, well, it has to be this. Well, you have to, as an artist, I strongly support the artist's right to say what they want to say. However, I'm critical about corporations who decide what type of art they're going to promote. And there's a redundancy in the art that we're receiving, because everybody in the community ain't rhyming deaf. Everybody's not. So we say, well, this is what the youth are talking about. Well, what youth are talking about that, right? So they've identified. There's like I told the story on another show about a meeting I had at Def Jam with well, at the time he was a vice president of A&R. He would later be the creator of Asylum, and I think he's now president of 300. And he told me that we would never get signed to Def Jam because we wasn't locking down the block. We wasn't street enough. We wasn't keeping it really real. Nice white Jewish guy who has a stereotype in his own mind, and he decides what he puts money behind.
That's right.
And then we think, oh, they got freedom of speech. No, they're just living out this man's imagination, with like how he sees us is what he's gonna, and we don't make that connection. The artist takes all the blame. It's not about the artist. It's about the corporation who's making all the money off the artist.
Hakeem, you just got a shout out from a demon. That's Larry Ham, y'all. Right?
Salute, OG. Yes, sir.
That's right. Hakeem discusses the political economy of the music, and that's exactly what you're breaking down. That's right.
Yeah.
And right now, again, like I love having these discussions. We need to bring all of you back, right? Like we need to bring all of you back to have more discussions like this. We have run out of time, but I do want everyone to do two things: one, to give their like final words, and also to tell us who you're rocking with right now, or who is your favorite hip hop artist, individual or group. So very briefly, because we are out of time, just closing statement on it. We thank you for all being on. Jakki Lake, thank you for co-hosting. We are honored to have you. I always say that I only argue with people I deeply respect. So I had a lot of fun in terms
He's
of
a
like
professional arguer, so you ain't gonna win.
I know. I was like, God, dog.
If I don't respect someone, I don't argue with them. Some of my best friendships are people who I disagree with on different things. So I'm honored to
I
have you here.
appreciate it.
Thank you for being patient with me as well. Thank you, Hakeem Green, Ambassador, for coming on. Thank you, Jessica, Renee. We got to have you back on again quite a few more times because, again, you're so knowledgeable and a lover of hip hop. Goke, we got to have you back on again. So we're going to let all of you end off. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone and thank you to our guests for coming on and the disciples. And I'll let you all end it. We'll go Zaid to co-host Zaid, Jakki Lake, Goke, Jessica, and then we'll end with the Newark's Ambassador of Hip Hop.
No, let
Zaid?
let them go.
All right, Jax.
Let them go. Yeah.
Okay, sure. In closing, I just want to say thank you once again. Also, for us all to really examine ourselves and really think about accountability. I am not down with Clarence Thomas. I'm down with God. That's who I rock with. So, who I've been listening to lately, especially, is a group called the Benjavites. Y'all have to check them out. The Benjavites. Go on YouTube. They have some really dope, positive, powerful songs. So that's who I rock with. The Benjavites.
All right. So, Goke?
So hi. Thanks so much for having me here tonight. This conversation was great. I learned so much, especially from you, Hakeem. Thank you so much for you dropped a lot of knowledge. I'd even love to talk to you personally if you ever have the time.
Sure, I do. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but my name is Goke. Obviously, as you can see, I make music. You can search me up on Apple Music, Spotify, most major platforms. Most recently, I released an Afrobeat song called "Stay With Me." It's just a nice little vibe, to listen to. Love songs. So for all those who, it's the summer, the season of love, and the group that I'm rocking with right now, Underground, is my boy Sam. For real, he dropped his own single, "Figure You Out." It's great. And also Underground, but slowly blowing up, is another group called Coast Contra. They're really great. They just dropped an album that was phenomenal to me as a rap masterpiece. So if you haven't heard of them, you should check them out as well. Really great. You might have even seen some of them blowing up on TikToks or Reels every now or every here and there. But they're up on the come up and they're really nice.
All right, Jessica.
Also wanting to give thanks for, even though it was last minute, but throwing me into the mix. Definitely glad to be among great folks, among some family. Check out the Blackocracy podcast. And who am I listening to? Forgot to also mention I'm a full spectrum doula. So pray for all of us in birth work right now. We going through it a little bit. It's gonna be all right though. Funny enough, I've actually been able to or been asked to support a lot of sisters through abortion lately. So it's getting hairy out here. But anywho, aside from that, pray for all healthy births, all healthy pregnancies. Black maternal mortality is still epidemic proportions. Who am I listening to in hip hop? I'm actually revisiting a couple folks, like Murs, Absol, Lil Ninth Wonder. I've been turning back a couple pages lately. I know Lupe put out a new project, so and revisiting some old Lupe. So that's where I'm at these days.
All right, thank you. And next time, Jessica, we'll get you on early. I promise. We will I'll be asking you a lot to come on. Loved having you on. So definitely early. All right. And Hakeem, our Newark ambassador.
Oh yeah. Peace. Nah mean. That's what I'm listening to right now. Nah mean. NAHMEAN exclamation point. That's my new EP. 5 joints. You got New York rap, Now and Then, Love and Hip Hop, Son of God, and Can I Eat? And on September 2nd, I'm dropping an album called Aubrey. For those who know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Come on, beloved.
Got 10 joints. I got 10 joints, all produced by Ron Lawrence. Check out for that. You got Took a Test, The Cypher featuring KRS-One, and Jewelry out right now. Check out for it. Hey, that's what I'm saying, right? Yeah, John, you know what it is, son. Not me.
All right. So thank you so much for coming on. For all of you coming on All Politics Are Local. We very much value you, and thank you for coming. Wait, yeah, there you are. Thank you for coming on. Yeah, I got you. And
hey, Austin, you went for a pick?
What's the pick?
Not me.
I don't get it. All right, so
he didn't go. He didn't go.
He
didn't say his spiel. He didn't give salutes and salutations to his hip hop he listened to.
Yes, Chris Randall. But that's true, Chris Randall. I apologize. I just took you for granted just now. Like
typical. That's typical. It sounds like your Coach of the Year speech.
Yes. Chris Randall's my little brother, and he's also sometimes I should give him even more credit, but sometimes I don't think he wants it, right? But he's just brilliant in his own right. My little brother, who I just took for granted just now. So
it's funny. Goke has a song called "What's it? Help Me Out, Goke." Well, you know which one is my favorite? You Ain't Never Been Great. It's about pain and sacrifice. Like how you. What's it called?
It's called
What's
Great.
It called? It's called Great. I love it. That's my favorite. I've been listening to the Pusha T. It's Almost Dry. I've been listening to Hakeem Green a bunch. It's Almost Dry is great. I've been but the Son of God by Hakeem Green is amazing. Everybody. So if you ain't heard that, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. That it's special. It's for a special audience, but I would say it's my favorite.
Out the waters of noon, Patah saw him said, "Let there be light," and put Rob on himself. Patah is the father who creatively commands. He's the architect of plans. Ra is the ram. Atum is the egg through thought we were led. The whole world created by the wordies. Everything is anyway. Y'all let y'all check it. I ain't gonna mess it up. Son of God.
The thing that just means a lot to me. Ptahhotep, the father of rhetoric, the first book on rhetoric, Ptahhotep, and that we actually celebrate him in debate. And at science particularly in terms of
you put him right next to Hillary Clinton.
Not right next to. It's kind of like the beginning of everything. So
don't lie. Don't act like we ain't got the picture.
Yeah, Chris Randall, you always bring it on negative stuff. I have to take you off, man.
you ain't say I lied though.
So yeah, you always lying, Chris. So
you ain't say I lied.
Right next to it. Come on, man. All right, so
we're 8 minutes. We're 8 minutes over, so we have to go. And Jessica, you have to come back because we didn't know that you was a duo, so we have to bring you back so we can talk about that. That's beautiful, and especially in light of this legislation that with the Supreme Court. So we have to bring you back.
Yeah, especially how it affects you and the things that are there. I think you have a very unique perspective. That's just full of layers and depth. So I appreciate you. Appreciate having you on. All right, so that's another week. So that's
thanks, Goke. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on, and we'll see you next week.
Okay, and we'll try to put that on our page too. Mike, put Goke's link on